We, the jury, find the defendant, Orenthal James Simpson, not guilty of the crime of murder.
Princess Diana dead.
Oh, she died. Where's the remote?
Vicky Smalls was also embroiled in a rivalry between East and West Coast rappers. His competition, Tupac Shakur.
Getting involved, this is supported. Oh, this is outrageous.
I haven't got AIDS. I'm HIV positive.
Hello, and welcome to Time. I'm JP.
I'm Gareth.
I'm Matty.
And I'm Liam.
And we're back, boys. Are we back for episode? Is this number 4 of Time, lads? Is this where we are? It's great stuff. I was expecting you to lead the way there, JP. I'm not going to lie.
No, for some reason there, the headphones weren't plugged in, so I couldn't see you as soon as I talked. So it just all went completely tits up at the beginning, which is what a place to start.
Good.
How are we, lads?
Matty just stepping in.
Yeah,
got him on, yeah.
He's a pro, mate.
True pro.
No, how are we all, lads? We're back. Another episode of Time. Matty, where have we taken the trip to, mate?
We are in January 1992, JP. Like, this would be, we've done the 1993 episode, haven't we? So, we're only a year previous to that. So, but a lot can change in a year, can't it? As we're going to figure out here, and especially in our lives on TV, the 4 pillars: sport, TV, film, and music. So, 365 days, boys. It's a long time, really, isn't it?
It is.
Were you born yet, mate?
Yeah.
I'm waiting to go into that, Liam.
I want to ask where we all were. We all should have been in fucking school. I know that much, but like it was varying different times in school.
Oh yeah, I was 5 years old, so my memories of this era are very few and far between. So I'm expecting the how do you say this? The more mature members of the
elder
group.
statesman, Liam.
Yeah, to carry this a bit.
Or Gareth, as we call them these days.
I'm going to try and stop that over the podcast. I'm not going to label Gareth for being old.
I love JP getting in on it there with his fucking 8 days younger than me, mate. He's fucking.
It's got to that point, mate. Yeah.
Really twisting the knife there, mate.
Sorry. If there's any consolation, your insides are looking a lot better than mine are for this point in time. But how old are you, Matty? January 92.
Same as Liam. I am 5 years of age, JP. I'm literally.
And your memories of popular culture at that point in time
is probably fucking It's probably WWF, the Turtles, and fucking I don't even know what else was Power Rangers even a thing. I don't think it was.
No, I don't think it was.
No, it wasn't. So genuinely, like, first memories will be the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and the WWF. And as Liam said, it's not as if I can vividly remember like days from January 1996. So we will leave it to you two guys to explain what you were doing and give us a more of a, broader, like, what was it like living properly in January 1992?
Wow.
It was in black and white, mate.
Might as well have been. I'm trying to think, did we still have the little black and white telly in the house upstairs?
In the space.
Is this the part when you had the music from the Hovis advert to play in the background?
Yeah, I think so. It might well have to be back in those days. I remember watching Sports Night on that, and I don't think you two ever would have a clue what fucking Sports Night is. I'm assuming, Gareth, you were a big fan as well whenever you got to stay up and watch that.
100%. What a theme as well.
Yeah.
Maybe that can make it onto the edit. But I think I did actually have a black and white telly in my bedroom. Now you're saying that, like, I'm thinking about it at this time. Like, I seem to remember getting like a little colour telly in my room when I was maybe about like 14 or something like that. So probably was still on the old little black and white one at this point.
Well, can I say I was though? I remember that. Now you see when you're talking, you're bringing them ever so slight memories back. I remember having that in 94 even, so I definitely would have, because I remember watching the World Cup final in 94 upstairs on that black and white telly, and it was one of them where you literally have to turn the knob and half an inch either way. It was like, oh no, it's gone, and then it was like, oh, then it's back on fully, and try to tap the top as well if it was going fully. Just different world in it now. Genuinely, this is why we do this fucking podcast.
Did it have the classic wood veneer outer to suit your?
No, this was like
the tables and
wood,
stuff.
Liam. No. JP, come on, what was you doing in January 92 in a nutshell?
In a nutshell, I was in school. I'm trying to think. It might have been in January 92, but I definitely had my first part-time job, which was, and this won't really surprise you, bottling up at a nightclub / pub. I ended up working there behind the bar. Other fucking stories when we get into that. If we get into 95. Yeah, seriously. It was in the morning. It wasn't like I wasn't working there at fucking midnight. I would do about 3 years later, which is shocking in and of itself. But that's a story for 3 years when we managed to do 95. But so I was bottling up in the morning, and so we'd always have the morning line, and then be there early doors. You had to do it beforehand. Yeah, so we'd have I mean, at that point, Channel 4 was it was awesome for a period of time. I'd love to have seen what they had Saturday morning, because obviously you went straight from, Gazette wasn't on at that point in time, but you had Transworld Sport morning line normally into what would have, it could have even been Kabaddi then. Yeah. I mean, properly, I don't like this sanitized Kabaddi I see on Sky occasionally in fucking arenas. Bull and shit. You wanted the way it's bloody meant to be. Out there in front of what looks like what could really pass for a League of Ireland ground at that stage. But yeah, I used to do bottling up to that. That's what I was. That was the only other kind of interesting thing other than going to school and generally not kind of really enjoying it, and probably going to football as well. Wouldn't be going to Barnet at this point. I can remember going quite heavily when they did stuff with the North Bank at Highbury. So that happened that's where I was in 92. What about you, Gareth?
Yeah, same. 13 years old, and just it's funny you saying bottling up, because I was trying to think of memories of being 13, and the first thing that came into my head was camping out in my mate's garden and getting up early to go nick bottles of fucking orange off people's doorstep when the milkman had been, sort of thing. So I was doing my own bottling up the other way there, but just generally when I think about it, just being just a little shit bag. You just have that age, aren't you, where you just sort of
Gareth.
Teenage, you just. Teenager, you just starting to get a bit of freedom and all that, and I just it was proper, just starting to hang about, going out for the day and just hanging about bus stops, hanging around random people's houses and stuff like that as well. So just good times. You've been let off the leash for the first time in your life.
It was halcyon days then, and it was kind of discovering drink, frankly, and fags. Well, I don't know. At that point, I think I still had. I don't know. Would you have been? I'd say smoking at that point in time.
I wasn't smoking, but I was drinking. Definitely.
That's early, that boys. That's early, man.
Oh yeah,
sure.
You were thinking about the top shelf at that stage as well when you walked into a news agent.
It was
which
I was thinking about the mate's mum.
Really though, JP, Gareth, you was used to drinking. I had my first sip of, obviously in even with the uncle or something, you'd have a little slight sip. But my first proper drink was when I was probably 15. Not 13 though. And I know that other people go, it's a long time then, 2 years. What's that?
I remember being shit-faced at my sister's 18th when I was 12. Absolutely shit-faced. I reckon I had about 6 pints that night.
What's going on here?
Just for anybody listening, my first drink was obviously a glass of wine with a meal, like they do in the
Oh yeah, you
fucking Gareth Barrymore here, weren't you? I bet you were on the blow as well at that stage. The sounds of it.
Yeah, JP, can I ask you this one though?
Sound like Corey Feldman or Corey Haim, whichever one of them ended up in a bad way with that stuff.
Me nan used to give me little tiny bits of martini when I was like 6 or 7. Just
Yeah.
to like, that's right though. Back in the day, we'll put a bit of like a less martini in your bottle to help you. Like you'd just be reported these days, wouldn't you?
You would.
Well, I remember going out for like Sunday dinner with my mum and dad, and you go to the pub and like they'd let us have half a shandy when you were like 10 or whatever kind of thing, and you're thinking, yeah, that's all right because it's fucking. Then some weeks it like mix it up and I'd have half a cider, and then I think about half a cider.
Whoa. Some fizzy apple.
I remember the excitement when you had a shop that would sell you a can, like a unsuspecting like newsagents, and they would sell you a can of shandy, and they were unaware of what they were selling you, or they were selling a cider lolly, and you thought you were the hardest man on the street because they got a fucking cider lolly sold to you.
Can you remember
fucking
Top
awesome?
Deck?
I can remember Top Deck.
Yeah, Top Deck. Lager and lime and Top Deck shandy. You could just buy it in the newsagents, but obviously it was fuck all alcohol. But like
Shandy Bass.
Yeah,
Bass. I was going to say Bass is the classic, isn't it? Yeah.
Fucking, I was thinking about shandy the other day, and just think, I wouldn't mind having a can of shandy from time to time. Just non-alcoholic version, probably, but at the same time,
not a radler man, JP. Prefer a radler, a little bit more lemonade, a little less alcohol.
I didn't. I tell you what was it? There was the 0% beer out that I remember my mum speak like she would allow me to have, and I can't think of the name of it around that point in that kind of Caliber. That was it. Yeah. Tastes like piss.
Low in it. Holston Hills was low.
That's how I started, and I can remember vividly eating like a massive sandwich, watching the words, drinking a bottle of Caliber on a Friday night. Probably would have been about 13, so it would have happened this year. I can't see how it wouldn't have done.
Couldn't have Holston pills in my house because my dad hated Dennis Leary for some reason.
Jeff Goldblum died only.
I can see your dad, in fairness, being a big Bill Hicks guy, and it kind of going that deep.
Stole all his best jokes. Fucking hate drinking his beer.
He did.
Oh, I love that.
Oh, brilliant. Oh, we haven't got for those of you who've never heard this show before and wondering, we're just going to just sort of chat generally 1992. There is a structure to the show where we have, and Matt, you're going to explain it to us, mate, aren't you?
I am, JP. We've got, as you always say, I dubbed this. It's the 4 pillars of life. It's no books, Liam, unfortunately. We might add a 5th pillar, as the show goes along. But we've got television, film, music, and sport. There for me are the 4 pillars of life, and everyone can relate to that in some way, shape, or form. So that's pretty much it, JP, for the structure.
Yeah. And of the 4 we're going to go into, first of all, and it's a big guns one for this. Yeah. Gareth, tell us what was going on in the world of television in January 1992.
Oh, well, I mean, this is it. When Liam put the list together and sent it round, and I just saw this list, it was just like, oh, the big dogs are out here now. Like with this one, there's definitely some belt and stuff to do to go through here. And the first one that we had on the list just ties in just brilliantly for what we were talking about. When you say what were you doing, it wasn't all nicking fucking milk bottles and drinking ale in bus shelters and things like that. There was fucking video games was a fucking big part of my life at this stage. Been like 13-year-old, and the first show here that we've got on the list is the first ever edition as well of Gamesmaster, which is absolute all-time classic, TV show. One that just at the time, just again for the age we were, just feeling like proper sort of like groundbreaking, that everyone's into playing games on the consoles, people on their Amigas and all that, like on your Super Nintendos, your NESs, your Mega Drives and Master Systems and things. It was just like life at that period of time. And then the idea that you then had a TV show that was telling you a bit more about games, seeing people play them and things. It was literally something that you'd never seen before. Kind of, you just never seen games have this kind of like platform and just been presented in this way. And it was just just one of those things that I think it was just like really contemporary as well. I think where you were like, you talk about us being like 13 years old there, and you're sort of like on the brink of like being, you know, you've just started been a teen. This sort of felt like a program that was like quite cool and quite for you and stuff. And like Dominic Diamond presented it in a way where he's a bit sarcastic and he's a bit kind of like a bit thrown in a few like naughty jokes there, kind of thing, a little bit under the radar and stuff. Bit of innuendo been thrown into the mix as well. And you were like, this isn't fucking kids telly now. Like this is like the proper stuff that we've got here. So, I mean, I had a blast going back and watching this episode. It was put such a big smile on my face. Well, what about you lads? Any big memories of Gamesmaster? Was it still around when you two sort of hit? I don't know.
Take it away,
age of like early teens.
Yeah, definitely. I remember watching Gamesmaster quite early. What you were saying there about this being like a new and fresh TV, being video games and whatnot, I think Patrick Moore playing the Gamesmaster gave it an air of legitimacy as well. I remember watching this with parents and them saying to me, "Oh, that's Patrick Moore," and Patrick Moore being who he was with Sky at Night and whatnot, did give it a sense of legitimacy. But Matthew, how old was Dominic Diamond in this first episode?
Oh, you're throwing it out. You're throwing curveballs, although I should expect it. You know what? I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go. He was 21.
Oh, okay, 22. So you're not far off.
Oh, fucking hell!
He looks
very,
very
very old.
Do you think he looked young?
How old Patrick Moore, though, Liam?
I don't know. I don't have that. You're not supposed to ask me the questions. The answers
He's got to be 70, though, hasn't he? He's got to be.
Oh, he is.
Oh, yeah.
Mate, he is. He's completely at that point in time. I mean, he was. I never watched the Sky at Night. It was a thing that was on. It was probably it was basically television telling you, right. It was the telly telling you, I'm off to bed. Is really what it was. The Sky at Night was on. And then it was like a fucking test screen. Yeah, that's what we had in 92. The idea of TV running through the night, I'm not even sure was that even a thing at that stage, other than like Channel 4, where it just went mental, didn't it? But
the only time I ever saw Sky at Night is when you fell asleep watching like a repeat of Trespass or Judgment Day, the film, and you woke up in like a stupor going, I've missed the end.
Nailed it, Liam. Nailed
Patrick Moore sitting there telling you what's going on in the sky.
JP, what you've said, like what the guys have said here, like even putting this on, like to watch it, I mean, it did feel like proper groundbreaking stuff. Like I was thinking, shows like this should be on now. I don't know if they is because gaming's took over for me in such a way now that it's like, why isn't stuff like this on now for it?
I get really annoyed. Like there was definitely a place for video games TV, and this was it basically, because games were never taken sort of serious, even though it was really big business and it was stuff that we were into, because it always felt, because of Mario and Sonic, that it was just treated like as a kid's platform. And admittedly, if you ask what game I was playing in 1992, primarily it would have been like I was going around my mate's house and it led to me getting a SNES, thank God. But it was playing Super Mario Brothers and just thinking this game is the best fucking game I've ever played. Unlike what video viewers can finally see, because my computer's decided to play YouTube this week, hopefully, unless the copyright overlords have got to us. But John Fashanu making an appearance as one of the celebrities in this. What was the name of the game? It was Manchester United.
Manchester United Europe, and this was a fucking great game at the time. Like I used to spend absolutely hours on this game. Honestly, when I was watching this first episode and this game popped up, I was just like, fucking hell! Like it just felt like I remember this coming out and buying it and feeling like completely like another level from where you'd had your old like football games and things like that on the Spectrum and stuff. The graphics on this and the gameplay were phenomenal, and then you watch it now and you're just like, fuck me, this is shite. Like it's so bad, but it's just of its time, and like you just having like all the proper names and things like that, and it was just a fantastic game this for back in the day. But John Fashanu wasn't very good at it.
He was getting angry as well, wasn't he? Which is,
unlike him.
Unlike him at all, actually. And I don't know. He probably gained like that Paul had abuse as well. Yeah.
blew me mind, like Gareth said there, that it had the real names on it. Kind of, I was like, in 1992, like FIFA's weren't having it back then or nothing like that. It was wild. But I suppose why he wasn't a show though now, sorry boys, why? Is because it's all probably available on the social media. And the fact you do have tournaments. I'm pretty sure though it's still a thing. Last time I had Sky a few years back, and they were having like FIFA tournaments on Sky. So I'm sure it's evolved in that way,
Just to mention that Gamesmaster did come back last year. They did have a new series of Gamesmaster on Channel 4 last year.
Did they? Yeah.
Hosted by Rab Florence, who does the podcast with Grado, who was in Still Game, I think he was in. It was like a 6-episode series they did of it.
He used to do Video Gaiden, which was like a very snarky online gaming show, which at a point in time where gaming itself had kind of evolved, and it was like, why is it just like not spoken about on TV? And it sort of made sense to do a web series. And I can see how he ended up getting it, because his two big kind of geeky passions were he'd wear Pro Wrestling Noah hats, and stuff like that on this show and everything else. I think there's a place. There was a cracking video game show called Video Game Nation that was on Challenge TV that was like sort of criminally underrated and actually had like some like good serious conversations. But yeah, some of the games in this as well. I know that there was he was shit on there as well. They also speak about movie conversion games, and there was like of the Terminator game for the Sega Mega Drive that I remember playing, customizable Game Boys as well. It was a wild episode.
Well, one of the things with this though as well that was like I like totally remember from the time as well is because of that sort of like humor here with like a bit of innuendo and things and a bit of a sarcastic and things with Dominic Diamond, that was in fitting of like the video game magazines at the time as well. So in the same way that like you know, if we're talking wrestling, you're always bringing up Aftermags, you look back then to this time period and it was like C&VG, there was Mean Machines that was out for like the Sega, and it was like from the same sort of like publishing house. So these guys they were almost like celebrities. So you had like Julian Jazza Rignall here, who was like, used to read his reviews and articles, and then again he was just like sarcastic and humorous and things like that, and they felt like the coolest guys in the world. But Radiant Automatic, who's on this show as well there, who was just like, you see him and you're just like, what a fucking nerd, but like he's got his long hair and shaved up the side and that. And I remember like you'd see them in the magazines and like, oh, these are the fucking coolest guys that like there is, and they were there on your telly suddenly. Like it was wild.
The famous one of those is Dave Perry, isn't it? There's that famous clip with Dave Perry on Gamesmaster when he gets beaten on a game.
It's amazing, Liam.
That's great. But just to close off about the influence of Gamesmaster, I mean, from this, I wrote down a list of video game shows that I remember watching, which were a little ahead of Gamesmaster. There was Bad Influence on ITV that came along with Andy Crane and Violet Berlin. That was like a CITV game show. Yeah. And then what Gareth was just saying about the characters within the computer game journalistic world at that time, there was Games World on Sky One when they made a load of the journalist characters. There was like Big Boy Barry and characters like that would play against like these general gamers. And then obviously one that I think we were all fond of that was a little bit more advanced was Bits in the late night slot on Channel 4, which was probably the last long-running video game show on terrestrial at that point.
I don't know if I've ever even seen that.
Oh yeah.
Comes to my time.
And then there was Vids, wasn't there, on ITV, which had the two Scottish players, but Bits was like, I mean, I loved all, like, this was very much the era of JP's like sort of like crushes and whatnot. And yeah, I'm trying to think of the short woman out of Bits who I just like kind of just thought she was just incredible. Like I can't remember her name off the top of my head. Was it
Emily Booth?
Yes, it was. It was exactly that.
She's off Liverpool Live TV, Liam. That's why I know Emily Booth. Blue Review.
Strangely enough, she was also on Birmingham Live TV as well. Anyway, moving on.
No, last thing I've got to say about Gamesmaster is the kid doing the challenge on Super Mario, right? The guy, Gareth, I don't know if he's one of your journalist guys. What an asshole. The kid like went the other way and he was like, oh, this kid's messed it all up now. He's terrible. It's like, give the kid a chance. And he's used the clock. What a tit he was. Honestly. Picking on a poor kid, lah.
Don't just Jazz Rignall, mate. Fucking hell.
Oh, sorry, mate. You could have been more sympathetic for the kid, like. Jesus.
Well, the next show that we've got on the list is one that I'll have to bow out of here, because I'll have to leave it up to you. This is Noel's house party, because, like, you know, at this age, and like, as you know, even the whole time it was on, I just never watched this ever. Like, I was aware of it and things, but it was just like, I think we were an ITV family on a Saturday night. It was Blind Date and things like that. You know, we were just never watching BBC.
You Bet before them.
Yeah, You Bet, Blind Date, all that. We just weren't Noel's house party guys. So I'll have to hand over for you to fill in here.
I was never a big Noel's house party guy. I didn't because we didn't really sort of grow up with it. I'm assuming that Matty and Liam are going to say you kind of grew up with it. I mean, I watched this episode, which I have to say, against all of what would normally be my better judgment, I enjoyed it, and I could see how it worked as Saturday night light entertainment telly. Like, it's very weird. Like, I kind of came out of it going, okay, no, it's actually quite well formatted, and it's got its decent show. It's got, for video viewers, Shane Ritchie makes an appearance playing someone from the West Country. Snakebite, that's right. He's off to a metal festival and the like. But it kind of worked for what it was, for like the light entertainment and stuff. I wanted stuff like NTV to somehow go horribly wrong, like to catch people like up to no fucking good, frankly, like when it just would suddenly zoom in on their TV. But there was it was kind of all very well constructed, even if fundamentally you didn't like Noel Edmonds. And I have to say, for this episode, which I was relieved about, because the thing that completely turned me off, it was fucking Blobby. No Blobby. And I was just like, get in. It's just like having a fucking police siren, or in wrestling terms, like Bill Alfonso, just like, just fucking noise and just bollocks and stuff like that, and would inevitably just sort of ruin it as well.
Liam, though, I mean, I don't know if you're going to defend Blobby, but big name though, Liam. Big star.
Oh, massive. #1 TV show, merch everywhere. Big star at the time, you know.
Christmas #1, wasn't he? 93, like a year later. But you take it away, Liam, on him on those party, and then I'll
Goldberg, mate.
Yeah. At this point in time, with everything that Blobby was doing, he was the obvious heir to the Jive Bunny throne, wasn't he? In terms of comic character that appeared everywhere. But no, watching this episode back, the first thing I thought while watching it is how fast it is. It's like 90 miles per hour, the whole show. It's like really, really just like breakneck speed sort of thing. But there is a point in this when he rings up a contestant for the big game show at the end, Grab a Grand, and he rings the wrong phone number. And going back to what Gareth was saying, being an ITV house at the time, she says she wasn't aware of what was going on because she was watching Baywatch on ITV.
You were watching when you were 13, Gareth.
So yeah, there was a clear divide. It was like,
the old fella.
You're either a BBC or an ITV house, or you're a Mega Drive or a Super Nintendo house at this period in time. Weren't you? I enjoyed watching this. I think unquestionably the star of this whole show is Jim Bowen.
Absolutely great. Amazing stuff. That, like, when the computer like explodes and he genuinely cracks up, doesn't he? It's like, and he's still not onto it, I don't think. And he's just like, he's like, fucking hell, and he's just laughing his head off.
When he shows up and he says, "You've got to wear a kilt." Yeah, this is for Scotland. You've got to wear a kilt. But proper professional doesn't blink at it. It's like, right, give me the kilt, I'll put it on. You know, working for the paycheck, but. My undoubted highlight is while he's sitting there with Noel Edmonds on the sofa going through this gotcha scene, his suit. He shows up in this white suit with like loafers, whereas Noel turns to him and goes, "Straight out of Miami Vice, are you, Jim?" Absolutely.
Noel's on fire during this. I'll tell you what, he is ad-libbing like a motherfucker throughout this episode as well. Like with the kid, I think it's quite good.
Like isn't it?
He's decent the whole way through. I mean, and he does the corpsing thing quite well as well at the same time. But it's like you say, you can imagine like Noel Edmonds without. This is the thing with him. If nothing else, he'll be fucking organised and rigid about the format, and it's like, this works. This is what we do. But you can't like
professional, JP. Genuine.
He's a proper professional. In some ways, you think if it was someone sort of like just ultimately more likable than Noel Edmonds, then that would have been the case, because there was still that vibe that you did have at that point in time of like, he seems weird. And then obviously when Brass Eye came out, and in the last episode, I know we're jumping ahead a good few years, and it did the fake advert during the season finale, where it was talking about how he'd murdered Clive Anderson and stuff like that, and they put it in like as a Channel 4 breaking news update in the middle of the adverts. I don't know, seek it out online on that. They're the kind of like, I kind of thought even though I knew it was a joke, you thought it's the kind of thing he could do, because in this he is kind of like this weird, ultimately kind of asexual man, isn't he? Just like entity, he just wants to entertain. It's quite weird. If you found, like, I don't know, he's an odd character, Noel Edmonds, for me. That's why I wasn't big into it. But I have to say, he was pretty decent on this.
Just
even if he does, about this.
Sorry, Matt. Just on the subject of Noel Edmonds, and I'm going to admit this here. I did have a Mr. Blobby toy when I was a kid, right? But obviously, they didn't make Noel Edmonds figures. So, you know, you've got to have Mr. Blobby with Noel Edmonds. So I must say the Noel Edmonds to my Mr. Blobby was a Series 1 Ted DiBiase Hasbro.
Perfect, Olive. Perfect.
I had a Ted DiBiase in his $1 million suit and Mr. Blobby, and that was Noel's house party for me.
Big question, Olive, before me 2 points are out. Have you still got that Mr. Blobby figure? I'm sure you have.
You're going to ask me to post it to you?
You'll soon
no,
enough.
I'll see that. I'll see that in real life.
Yeah, no problem. You could probably book the real one for less than that figure cost these days.
No, but two things, boys. He's a proper worker as well, though, JP. He gets involved with Willie Carson at the end, gets his hands dirty with the grab a grand, doesn't he? And also, you're saying Blobby's Goldberg. I think Noel's Goldberg because he had a second run. Deal or no deal, boys, years later. I mean, whether you're a fan or not, it was a big show that it took over, didn't it? It took over.
It is like that later Goldberg run where it kind of works, even though it absolutely shouldn't do as well. Exactly. And it is kind of weird at the same time, like Deal or No Deal, because it is like people who feel like they're members of a Noel Edmonds cult when they're there. Did I imagine this? Does he not just own a coffee shop in New Zealand at this stage, or was that just some weird fever dream that I've had?
No idea.
Somebody check that out. Sorry.
If you'd have told me he was dead, I might have believed you. I've got no idea. He's just like one of them people who just seems to
He's living off
vanished.
that Deal or No Deal coin, isn't
so, yeah, maybe. But obviously, Jim Bowen was on this one and a big part of it. I'll just jump to the next show here, and we're talking about this being Saturday night. So while me and my dad would have been talking about Eric Arielniak's acting skills instead of watching Noel's house party, something that we definitely were watching on a Sunday night was Bullseye. And Bullseye just been that show that was like that Sunday night feeling as a kid. Like Bullseye was great, kind of obviously for the game show that it was. But it was definitely kind of one of them shows that was on, and it was starting to cement that feeling in my head of like, oh fuck, the weekend's nearly over. It's like school tomorrow, kind of. Yeah. It was one of them like little markers in your life, Bullseye. But when you go back and watch this, it's just like it's wild when you think that we've just been watching Gamesmaster and just how modern the setting in a church and the use of graphics and young people, sarcastic innuendo. Then you look at Bullseye and you go, this was on the same week kind of thing, like, or, this is on in the same month. You could have told me this was 1984 and I'd have fucking believed you, isn't it? You go back to Jim Bowen's suits on Noel's house party, you're like, look at what he's wearing here. You look at the some of these people that we've seen on screen, like how just dated they look, like the clothes that they're wearing, just like a nice pair of slacks and just like a little like nylon polo shirt and things like that to get the best gear on to turn up and be on. He's only 22 on the telly.
50-year-olds kind of are in painted on jeans these days. Still getting the slacks out. Still got the ripped jeans on.
But it's just like you just think of the whole thing with like Jim Bowen here, and you think of his style as like a comedian and things, but just like throughout this show, you watch it and you're just thinking, God, how just of its time and stuff, where he's like, there's the female contestant, and he's telling her that she's a good-looking girl and things like that, and you're just like, you wouldn't have some hosts saying that to somebody now. There's the contestant, the younger one, Michael, with the glasses on, and Jim Bowen's like having a go at him for being a miserable fucker and not smiling and things like that on camera and stuff, and you're just like proper on the wind up with him and just making a bit of a twat out of him on telly and stuff like that. You're just like, that just ain't happening these days, is it? Definitely wouldn't be going down things in the same route here. But it's just, when you think of it as just a format, just like what a perfect 25 minutes like TV game show there, with them just the original question round, the part with them having like proper darts, and then coming back like at the end with like the prize board and everything like that, and then obviously Bully's special prize at the end as well, the big one. Everyone always remembers your speedboat, obviously, is the joke that everyone comes back to. But there was all like good, decent stuff as well there of its time. But then when you go around the prize board and you've got like fucking cutlery sets, or you've got like like some plates and some bowls, some roller boots.
Let's have a look.
Like a Mickey Mouse phone, things like, it's just like you see the prizes again, like of its time stuff. You wouldn't even be happy to win, would you? And then like people are getting the option here on the show.
Yourself, mate.
People are on the opposite. People here on the show, like
folks.
they're getting the chance to gamble here and like just refusing it because they'd rather go home with like 110 quid in the pocket between them and stuff like that, as opposed to gambling. But what a show! JP's obviously a massive Bullseye fan. And what is it? Top five TV shows of all time this season, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and it's for all of the reasons. All right, the reason why it never fit into the role of right, the weekend's over, it's time to be depressed, is it wasn't religious. It was followed by Highway, which was like, shit. Christ, there we go. Literally, here he is, because it's Songs of Praise on the other side as well, and it's just like, just give up. There wasn't like good stuff on a Sunday as well. It was shit. There wasn't like a match of the day too that you thought will keep you going. No, you had your games done on the Saturday. You didn't even see your fucking team's goals unless you were fucking there. But this was just awesome, and we were a big darts and snooker house. I cannot stress that enough. And like, even though Bowen, he's come to the end of his run here, he's 3 years' time and it's gone. And there's and it's coming back as darts enters into its Luke Littler era at this stage. It's coming back with Paddy McGuinness hosting it, which you go, yeah, I can see that. I can see why they would do that as well. Like I say, just everything about, like, if this is on Challenge TV, I'll watch it. The subtle music changes I might add to it, like just the quality of questions and stuff, particularly when you're getting into the 80s and stuff. It is like, but it required an element of skill. What I would say about this episode, though, is it starts off fucking big. They're like going bull. It's like, I can see where it's almost like we are entering into almost a Phil Taylor era of contestants who are pretty decent in terms of like non-darts players, because they're nailing the fucking balls at the beginning on there. I think these two are quite wise to back out. There's always a few cunts in the crowd who are going to go gamble. It's like, nah, fuck off. Like, you've made good coin here. Well, good coin by those standards, because he's been nailing those balls early doors, isn't he? And it is. I mean, but what I would say is the effort at the end from the non-darts player and the player was fucking disgraceful. Obviously, it was the two lads who had like nothing to kind of keep in the first place. Mate, there's pressure and there's just shit. Like, otherwise, inexcusable. 52 between the pair of them. Fuck off. Like 6 darts. But those days, they never went for 19 and 17 and 16. And they fucked it off. It was all about 20s. And you're like, no, you need these days, as we've seen in terms of that, it's, your treble 19 just as important. It can't be ruled out. So it's almost like you're seeing the evolution of darts at the same time, or I would claim it is. And my aunt had a bully as well. And I know, Liam, you yourself have a special present for this, don't you?
Look at that, lads.
Oh, that is. JP, get that on full screen if we can. That is so fucking superb. That deserves, like, there we go. That is. How good's that, boys?
I'm here to announce I'm the new host. But I'll just say about Bullseye that it's such a simple concept, and its strength is its simplicity. But it's a game show that's so made by the host. And I think whoever they had, I know they did a remake with Dave Spikey, did they? A couple of years back? And now they're going to do it with Paddy McGuinness. I think there's some game shows that are just synonymous with the person who hosts them. Catchphrase with Roy Walker. Roy Walker's gone, that's it. You know what I mean? Play your cards right, Brucey. That's it. Yeah. You know, and Bullseye was one of these as well, that without Jim Bowen, it's not really Bullseye, is it? And just going back to what Gareth said to begin with, it was real people. And that was the strength. The contestants were real people that people knew and they could relate to them people. It wasn't an influencer looking for a leg up on Instagram. It wasn't a celebrity. It was a real person. And you could understand with the prize money, like you were saying, people taking the prize money, that £250 is a lot of money to people.
Yeah.
Of that, you know what I mean? It's not somebody who's going to make £200.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, love Bullseye, top 5 game show of all time. Jim Bowen, brilliant.
Yeah.
Nothing more to say.
Can I just say one last thing? Clash of the Titans, boys. Who wins? Blobby or Bully? If you're putting them in the squared circle, who's going over?
Bully.
Bully all day.
Yeah.
Bully is Bully squashing Blobby like he's Vader squashing Inoki in 90, which I think happened that year, which got him over big in Japan. That's what you're doing at Bully. You put him over and you put him over fucking strong. He comes over from the ITV territory.
Blobby's the face, though, isn't he? Bully's the heel in that
scenario. It's like Black Taurus going against Playboy Buddy Rose or something like that.
You can imagine him as well. If you want him to do heel, he's got that dictionary that he could fucking twat him with as well at the same time, as well as the darts. So
love it.
Oh well, the next one. That's I think when we did do our top 5 game shows, it was in my top 5 game shows, and it was one that I just grew up with, going to my gran and granddad's after school every night, sitting down with them, watching blockbusters, and like fucking the time graphic that I design is based on bloody blockbusters now. The version that I've gone with the shapes across the board there, and again, where you talk about like a game show that's just like, for the pure simplicity of it, it's just one that, again, just like nice, easy to comprehend. You've got your team of 2 who've got to get 5 questions right to get horizontally across the board. You've got the person who's by themselves who's got to get 4 questions right to go vertical up the board. So there's that kind of like weighting towards either way. There's that bit of element of you've got the 2 versus 1, and it's there's that element to it. But literally as simple as just going through and being like, what E is, and then the answer begins with E. What W is, and the answer begins with W. Very like simple, nice, clear format and things. And obviously you've got the comedy format of these being sort of kids in 6th form really doing this, which is like quite mental really. Last year, college kids who were the contestants on the show. So you always had that thing of them being like, at the time, feeling probably quite cool as well. It was young people on telly versus, when you've been watching your Bullseye and it was your older people. Suddenly there was guys there and they were on there wearing a James t-shirt or something like that, and you'd be like, oh, I like that. That's like so-and-so from my school or things like that. They're there with the floppy curtains on there and that kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
So everyone's got the same haircut, Gareth. So the guys have got the same haircut.
They all felt like
it's the curtains era. This,
yeah, definitely.
Just felt dead relatable from that point. But then obviously because of the age that they were, you got the comedy of them being able to ask Bob, can I have a P please Bob, or more subtle, can I have an E please Bob, which was always a good one for back in there in the early 90s. And you've got straight.
You were on that at 30 when you
Not quite yet, mate. But you've got the straight-laced Bob illness just holding it all together, and again just a little joke here and there along the way, a little wind up with the kids playing along with it as well. But this is just an all-timer for me. When I watched this one episode, I wanted to watch the next one because I wanted to know what the two people who won at the end of the show then went on to do on the next show. Yeah. It was just like compulsive for me. I literally could have sat and watched this for 5 hours, like once we started watching this episode. I had a great time watching this. I'll go to you first this time, Matty. Is this even like in your consciousness? Is this is it something that you remotely remember, or is it just something that's kind of passed through time?
No, I remember like me nans again. I'll always this era was just like going to me nans all the time, and she loved it. And as you say, Bob Holness is the glue, though, Gareth. He's a proper, just full on Prit sticky, mate. He's the glue, like holding all this show together. But also, you break it down, right?
Ironically, looks like a Prit stick as well in some ways, doesn't it?
No, boy, serious. Every show, Gareth, just handicap matches. Why is it 1-on-2 though? Why is it always a handicap match?
I've got to get
right
5.
with that on Raw,
Oh,
weren't
that one
you?
is right. Okay,
They've got to get 5. The single guy's got to get 4.
Oh, okay, right. See, it's been a while since I watched it, but yeah, as you say, simplistic, and it's giving you the letters. GP's gone there with a thing, but yeah, a cracking, as you say, 20-25 minutes, and I genuinely did, like you said there, wanted to know how they got on the gold run on the next episode, like genuinely. So yeah, great stuff. It is great.
Just on the subject of this, if 15-1 is the G1 of game shows, is this the Champions Carnival of game shows?
I think so. Like, I don't know. Would that not be University Challenge in some ways? Like, because I'm thinking this is like they each wanted like what I thought was I don't know if you'd put it as a smart ass game show. It seemed weird. Like ITV clearly have thought, okay, we want some of that University Challenge orders, but we're just going to do it with sixth formers who are going to be a bit more laid back. And at this point, you got to remember, I only went another year after this, like May '93. So it was Blockbusters did, yeah. So it was like, and it was one of these things where, like you say, it ended with him, didn't it? I mean, he didn't die or anything else, so he wasn't like didn't do anything. But I reserve the right to kind of change my mind on that. Whether Bob Holness is one of history's worst criminals, I don't think he is. And he's pretty brutal in this, actually, at points as well. But that's always. I think this is more New Japan Cup than G1 of the of 15-1 in some ways. Like, I don't know. Is that a terrible guess? All right, bloody hell. Look quite upset about that.
Bob Holness is the classic pub quiz question, though, isn't it? Like when someone goes, "Who's the second person to play James Bond?" And the answer is Bob Holness because he played him on the radio adaptation of it, and it's always the one that gets brought up in pub quizzes.
I love this though with the prizes. Again, when you come back to the prizes here, and like getting a Blockbusters dictionary, a multicoloured rugby shirt, and 50 quid. Like, like.
Do you make this 15, 16?
Made up, and then like the lad on here, he won a trip to Greece, and he was there giving a shout out to his mate, telling him, "Pack your bags, you're coming to Greece with me," kind of thing.
To learn how to surf, wear a Gareth and swim and everything, basically.
You've never been abroad as well. When you forget that, like, it wasn't the era where people went like off to fucking Spain as kids. That didn't happen in the mid-80s. The holiday in the UK and Ireland, in my case, whether you fucking liked it or not, that's where you're going.
Oh, well, if we move on to Blockbusters, I can't leave Blockbusters without doing.
Mate, I hated that.
That is going viral, that boy. That clip's going viral. Clip that, JP, and put that on YouTube.
Always used to sit and do the Blockbusters jive along as the end credits rolled there. Every week sat there on my grand sofa. But we'll move on from there, and then one that's kind of like a real big part, I think, of time, and it's always one that we'll come back to every chance that we get, really, because it is just so like of this time period, and just something that's just like, just legendary status is the word. And obviously, again, from like this time, we've got like the word from the 17th of January, and again, we've done it on a previous show, but this time you had Amanda de Cadenay's away on honeymoon. Did she marry John Taylor from Duran Duran? Is that?
She did.
Saying, I think so. So instead, we've got Bruiser de Cadenay, her brother from Harrow, is on presenting the show this time with Terry Christian.
Jesus fucking
wild!
Christ.
This uber posh kid with his fucking leather jacket on and that just unbelievable, that he's been given this gig. But it was one of them, just sort of like showing the eclectic nature of the show. You've got Terry Christian holding it together, not quite in a Bob Holness way, but in a definitely a much more erratic and on the fly way, as they're fucking changing the order of the show every 5 minutes and what's coming next and things like that. But that was part of the joy of the word kind of thing. It was its flaws as well as that were sort of like big parts of it, really. Again, that just was made it quite sort of like modern and modern of its time.
T-shirt, sorry, Gareth, is that
But
mustard?
that's
I mean, I'm colourblind. Like, what is that?
Look at the guys in the background though. There, the old white turtleneck there. Yeah,
did you have one of them, Gareth?
Oh, I did, 100%. I did. You know what, Matty? I had one in white, I had one in black, and I had one in salmon.
Oh, I love that.
3-pack probably.
Yeah,
I think Terry Christian is wearing the LA Lakers championship parade.
Another any chance
Suits the time.
What Chester is Kex though, boys? Fucking hell, am I Andy? No need, is there?
This is really the start. This scene here for video viewers that you can see. This is really the start of Kex Watch. This is really where we're at on here. Like when you get these two standing together as well.
That girl in the background's got the puffy shirt from Seinfeld on as well. She just turned and walked away as well there. So very much, very much.
Lex Luger Nitro episode 1.
100%. But you've got the varied guests here, haven't you? Like throughout the show, you've got Daisy Chainsaw playing "Love You Money" live in the studio, and that was always a big feature. Obviously, was bands. First time that you see certain bands. Nirvana, obviously, famously were on the words. L7, obviously, go down in fame for their performance on the words. But then next scene, you go from this, and you've got fucking Roger Black, sort of talking.
I'd love to say about him, Gareth.
Athlete Roger Black. You've got like going out and going to like the Australasian club in a church in London. You've got Paul Eaton. You've got Kingmaker. You've got an interview with Dolph Lundgren. So much going on in this show. You talk about Noel's house party being 100 mile an hour and stuff happening. What they pack in here to the 40-minute edit that we've got on this show is absolutely wild. So, Roger Black stand out for you then, Matty?
Oh, mate, I mean, how jealous was he that he wasn't getting the glamour and the limelight that he obviously craved at the time? It was like, it's mad though, isn't it? Like, fair play for him being honest. He was calling out the cheats of the sport and equality. Great, all that's brilliant. But then, like, he was leaning into like, we're not treated basically like the footy players. And then even Christian's trying to get like the girls in the crowd and guys to say like, is he fanciable? And I was made up when he doesn't get a big pop. I was like, he deserves that for being a fucking look for it. It was doing my head in. I couldn't believe it. Like, when I was hearing, he just wants to be that like, what's the word? Like that maverick type, like who all the girls and guys fancy. No, you Roger Black. You know what I mean?
I once met Roger Black opening the NIA in Birmingham, but it never really meant much to me because I was always IWC John Regis myself.
Yes. Thank you. That upper body. He really was.
Look at him though, Gareth. Come on, you're trying to tell me.
I was more of a Hurdles and a Tony Jarrett kind of man. That's all I am. With my
it looks like Jack Ryder.
Jarrett t-shirt.
He does look like Jack Ryder, doesn't he?
I'm all for, but when you're looking for it, no, I'm not having it. Never have that.
No. But then after they do the bit with Roger Black, we go to Terry Christian's at an Australasian club in a church in London where they do sort of like big all-dayers and like famously for all rugby league fans out there, this was where Joey Johns, possibly the greatest rugby league player of all time, the Lionel Messi of rugby league, got caught in there doing ecstasy in there, which was big news story in the rugby league circles back in the day. But God, it was fucking rammed in there, wasn't it? Like, was that something you were aware of, JP, in London?
Yeah.
Working behind the bar.
Unfortunately, I wasn't quite there yet. There was times there was at this stage, like not long afterwards, you had like basically the Aussie explosion in London. you're like kind of like, or what felt like it was really noticeable around places like Earl's Court, especially when it started to sort of drink properly, like at sort of, let's say 16, for argument's sake, where I could get served in some pubs because it was different times for ID. We'll just say that. Like there was always like a big kind of, you'd hear about these like big places, and you hear about I remember hearing about the church, particularly because of the Andrew Johns story as well, but it wasn't that far away. So it was in North London. I want to say it was near Muswell Hill, which is actually quite posh.
Apparently, it moved around quite a bit. From what I've done some research into this,
Yeah.
it did move around quite a bit because I have a similar experience to this. That one year I got dragged along by one of my Australian mates to go and watch the AFL final at the Clapham Grand, and the doors opened at about 3 a.m. And I didn't know what I was getting myself into at this. So literally, I walked through the door. I was given 2 vouchers. One voucher was for either a Castlemaine Forex or a Victoria Bitter, and the other voucher was for a meat pie. What meat it was is still up for question. But yeah, and it was absolutely rowdy. So I can just imagine this club was that every week.
Yeah, it was heavy. It was also, and again, this is probably much more. And I'm not actually wanting to go to show too much necessarily from it because there is some nudity, which will end up getting the video being entirely banned. So I suppose what I might do is run to the bungee running contest between Britain and the UK that comes in the end instead. But yeah, there was like a kind of like, it was more of a pub culture, and that was what you kind of aspired to do, was to be able to drink in pubs because that's where people had a fucking laugh. That's how it always kind of, even though like at this stage I was like starting to like kind of be more like kind of around pubs and the rest of it, you know. So, and you'd be taken to the pub by your parents a lot more. That doesn't feel like the kind of thing that happens so much now. It's like kind of isolated occasions, but yeah, simpler times.
Would you push the giant here on screen? Would you give him a run?
Oh, you would do, wouldn't you? Like you would do for this. I think he's got some good charisma, not the other bloke. Like, as his heel manager, like in Kent and Tay, the Australian Paul Heyman.
I don't think anything's more of its time than that big guy that Matty's referred to having the name Tiny. Everybody had a family friend around this time that was a big bloke, and he was referred to as Tiny. That was a hilarious nickname.
What a British name though, David Treadwell. It was just great.
But do you know what they call him, Matty, on this show? One of your mates, Dave the Rave.
Dave the Rave? That's what they called him, didn't they?
Dave the Rave and Storming Norman, which sound like a local drive time radio duo.
Amazing. But obviously they do this bungee run thing, which is fixed anyway, because it's obviously what they were doing in that church anyway, and the 2 Aussie lads are from that fucking church anyway, so it was rigged anyway. Yeah. So it was always set up for the Brits to lose. Terrible. But any other thing stands out on this show? Obviously you've got Paul Heaton beer as miserable as fuck with his crisp packets.
Mate, I thought it was incredible. Your collection of crisp packets. I thought it was a piss take, honestly. For that, I was like, is this really happening? Is Paul Heaton actually just talking about it? He seems talking with a degree of seriousness. I didn't know if it was some sort of Joaquin Phoenix performance art trick or something like that, and we just missed it at this stage. Or it's the word. It's one of the two.
It's actual serious stuff, because I went to a Grace and Perry exhibition not long ago, and there was a part in the corner that was dedicated to Paul Heaton's crisp packet collection, and I thought it was a fucking wind up at the time, and then I saw it, and
it's like a page in Viz or something, isn't it? Paul Heaton's crisp packets. It's like a Viz sketch or something.
Branch out to Pringles tubes after crisp packets, boys. Fucking hell!
Even in 1992, he cut down to just the ones that he liked, didn't he? Because he was getting too much of the collection. But Matty, I've got a list of the flavours here. You're going to tell me which one you would like? Cocky Leaky was the first one. Hot dog and ketchup, haggis, corned beef, salt and pepper, hedgehog, and sausage and tomato.
Oh, I'd have to go sausage and tomato would be nice, and I wouldn't haggis. No, never had that, and I wouldn't even try in quiche form, to be honest with you. What else was there? What else was there, Liam? What was the other like tomato hedgehog? One? Was the
hedgehog?
No, not at all. Gareth, would you go with the hedgehog? Being a vegetarian.
It wasn't much here for me, was it?
Salt and pepper, I think, by default.
Yeah, I think I've had them.
Should have asked him if he's got any cheese and onion Smiths there. We're not mentioning even Walkers at this point. We're in Smiths territory. It's like
even showed a bag of Tudor. People remember Tudor crisps?
Yeah.
A canny
I
bag
remember
of
those.
Remember the Jodie adverts?
Can I ask you two older statesmen one question before we end on the word? Were any of you guys a Katie Putrick guy at the time?
Yes.
No, you can ask the younger members as well.
Okay, I can ask you, Liam. Was you a Katie Putrick guy?
It was always something about her shaved eyebrow for me.
Okay.
Always a big fan. She used to have that shaved eyebrow. Yeah.
I'd have killed for her, mate.
You talk about Baywatch, mate. I genuinely not asked. I'd be Katie Putrick. Definitely,
Pam Anderson, not a patch.
More than your Baywatch girls. I'll be there with Katie.
Katie Putrick, who's currently touring the country doing a David Bowie tribute. There you go. There's stats for you. Yep.
Between that and Eric Cantona doing a singing tour, what's going on?
There's an alternative universe where her and Dolph Lundgren are together, and then that's like an odd couple combo because
and again, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, there's flirty, and you know. Lundgren shooting his shot, and why not? Talking about Universal Soldier as well, which I don't think he realised it would be pretty much downhill for Big Dolph for quite a period of time after that, wouldn't it? It wouldn't. What else did he? After Universal Soldier, it was like the law of diminishing returns. But just to be stated, as far as I can remember, he was fucking great in Universal Soldier. That ear necklace thing as well.
It made when I just saw him on there, I was like, I need to watch Universal Soldier again soon. Just one of them films that I watched 100 times as a kid and then haven't watched for 30 years or something like that, you know. So I was just like, yeah, I'm going to put that on the list of one that I'm going to go back and watch this year. But as the clock's ticking, the time is ticking along, and we're getting to the end of the first pillar here with TV. Something that we always have on our list is the soap operas. So we always just like to have a little dip into what was going on in EastEnders, Corrie and Brookside at the time that we're on there. So if I start with Corrie here, you've got Jim and Liz McDonald here, and it's New Year's Day, and they're frantic because Steve McDonald's been out all night, and that forces Liz McDonald to go into early labour and have a premature baby. You've got poor Beck Gilroy. Alex done a runner and gone off on a cruise for Christmas, so he's left Bet on it all by himself with a step granddaughter Vicky, the posh lass Vicky on the street there, who come from a bit of money, but unfortunately her parents had died. So you've got Bet trying to kind of rein her in from spending the night with Steve McDonald. And then you've got Ken Barlow ditching Alma when they'd gone away for a dirty evening for New Year's Eve, and Ken found out that she'd had a little dalliance with Mike Baldwin again previously. That dastardly old heel face dynamic between Ken and Mike that's ran so well over the years. Always a storyline you could go back to. That one. Your three big stories coming out here. Anything jumping out for any of you lads quickly from Corrie?
Big star of the era, Sarah Lancashire.
Yeah,
you know, probably the biggest actress in the country at the moment on TV, isn't she? And this was the first month she was in Coronation Street. This as Raquel. I
can remember talking about Happy Valley and trying to recommend it to Gareth, and Gareth's wife Sarah is saying to you, wasn't it? She goes, not watching that with that Raquel off Corrie, like, and just seeing her in this as well. It'll be the bigger theme for certainly the soaps, but we're in that what would be like the height of what I like to label the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday night wars that took place with the soaps at that stage, because it's full of main event talent as well, and it's different eras. Cross-cutting over an era as well. You've got, the McDonald era, but you still got Bet Lynch going into it as well. You've got the workers in Mike and Ken here at the same time. Good storyline with Raquel, setting up her and Curly again in there. Is that Curly's sister? Like I was right in thinking it was in that episode as well. But I thought this was, I don't know, I suppose I was trying to cram this in. I was just like looking around a pub and I was like, God, that's hell of a mid card, isn't it? Just like across Alma, for example, like it's just the most solid fucking mid card you could imagine in there as well. I'm even trying to think of the old woman who was in there who
Phyllis,
turned up in
Phyllis,
the pub.
Phyllis Pierce pops in for a light ale.
Exactly.
Oh, Percy.
It's just
We've got so many
good
clips
workers.
that I can't keep them covered, mate.
How old are we reckoning Betty's in this episode?
Oh, I'm going. Oh, wow. I'm going. You know what? I'm going to go a bit lower here. I think I'm going to go the big 5-0.
Bet.
Yeah.
62.
65.
Matty, you're a year out again. 49 she is in this.
She's got to change.
Gilroy's 49, yeah.
Bet Lynch.
Oh, Bet Lynch, yeah, Bet Lynch, yeah. Alec Gilroy, yeah.
Yeah,
I thought we said Bet Gilroy there for a second as well, and I was like, right, I am just misremembering.
Yeah,
Bet
Julie
Gilroy in a
Julie
massive
Goodyear
way.
is 49.
That's it, Gareth, 49.
Julie Goodyear 49 in this episode. Mad.
You're gone off that.
46 this year, me and JP.
That is absolutely terrifying as well. That the idea that this woman, who looks like she more or less could be my mum if the screen actually starts working at this point, there she is.
49.
He fucking nearly just over 3 years older than me. Christ, like there's a step into the abyss, Gareth, there for the pair of us. That's harsh. The cracking worker. Goodyear carried the territory for years.
Do you know what? Acting actually stood out to me on this show. I thought, like, you can tell she's a cut above some of these no marks who have been
Jake
wheeled
Roberts,
in here.
boys, didn't have to do much, but when she done something, it meant a lot.
Has she not been played by Sheridan Smith on an ITV drama then yet? Because that feels like, surely we must have had that at some stage. They're doing about people from Crossroads, for fuck's sakes. I'm sure that, like, Julie Goodyear deserves that kind of treatment. So does Pam St. Clement while we're at it as well. But
you've just blown my mind there. 49. It's no fucking way. Like, oh my God.
Wrong. What a fucking show. It just came out.
And I mean, there wasn't much. It was a pretty quiet episode of Corrie, all in all. I think. Yeah. Brookie, there was a bit more going on there. Brookie, a bit more going on. 3rd of Jan, I think you had Ron Dixon trying to sell. Ron Dixon tried to sell his son's keyboard and getting robbed by a man with a fake broken leg. When Ron goes upstairs to get the amp to go with the keyboard, and the fella does a run with it. Brilliant, just classic Brookie. That just like stupid storyline. You've got alongside that, you've obviously got the serious storyline going on there. You've got Margaret there, who obviously would, become more prominent a Brookie character for the kiss with Anna Friel, but this time she's seeing a priest here in this one, which is obviously a big black mark there from a religious standpoint. And then also running through the story, you've got Max Farnham and his wife Patricia. Like, Mac's been doing the dirty on her, and it turns out she's got breast cancer. So his actual wife, so he's gone back to her as well there. So a few things going on, but then you've also got the big element at the end where you've got Barry Grant having a run-in.
Ron fuming, sorry, I can't get my eyes off Ron. Big tail, loving it. It's like, look at it. Good rug on Vince. But you've got the Barry Grant storyline as well, where he'd pushed Teddy's wife and child off the scaffold because still going?
Because
Barry was going to be found out from having been shagging Teddy's wife and things as well. So that was obviously a big storyline back in the day as well. So you had a proper A-lister here in Barry Grant getting a big scene here at the end as well. So quite a lot going on in Brookie again. Anything stand out for you here, lads?
Well, I just want to bring this up because probably you're the only person that would get this reference. But when I was a kid, I was convinced that Bamba Boozler from Bamboozle of Pelican Play was Ron Dixon.
I know what you're going to say.
Oh, fucking hell. That's what makes way to the show, which is for that bloody hellfire.
Side by side, JP, them images.
Oh, fucking hell.
Were we Patricia Farnham or Susanna Farnham men here? Did we have a preference over the two? Both of them done good stretches with Max, like 5 years each on the side.
I'm going Susanna. I'm going Susanna.
I think
I'm going to go Patricia.
Yeah.
I'm going to go Patricia just simply because I'm just trying to think to myself, I can't quite remember Susanna Farnham, and I feel like I should remember at that stage. I might have to have a
look with Mick Jono, JP.
She was more. Oh, yeah. She wanted a bit
of
Mick Johnson appears in this. I think, is it now that he appears?
He does. It comes
there
back.
There he is.
There he is.
Legend, big Lewis Emmerich, isn't it? Legendary
full head of hair. Yeah. Tash.
Last saw him on an episode of the underrated Brassic on Sky. Yeah. He was in one of the episodes.
What kind of character JP is he playing in that? Heel or
he was playing? He was playing a heel, like running around with his him and his girlfriend are into like that kind of like 50s type of like pop and stuff like that, but they're also quite brutal with guns in the way that Brassic can be. He's always got good work. He's a hell of a worker.
I think,
he should be doing more stuff in there as well. But he was always cracking in there. I mean, this is at the point where, like, just the soap territories in general, just how fucking hot they were. And I think this is like ECW basically thriving. I think at this stage, what you've got here, like, you know,
what a comparison.
They've got their stars like at this stage. It's not on the bigger channel.
Sorry, you've nailed that. That is amazing.
How you feel about Corey and EastEnders gets into WWF, WCW territory if you want to go down into that route. But it feels like they can keep their main eventers. It was just big time for soaps. Like it was like proper fucking stars, big ratings as well. Like this would have been doing like a good fucking 5-6 million, which people would lose their fucking minds over if did that these days.
I think what's obvious about these soaps, watching them and how strong they are, as you're saying, is that each episode only has about 6 or 7 characters appearing, in them, and they carry the whole episodes. It's not like a load of moving parts. It's like strong dialogue, decent acting, and strong storylines that they can get away with few actors in each episode.
Yeah. Definitely. Well, we'll move on from the franchise, Ron Dixon, and we'll finish up for TV this time, and we'll go with we'll just run through EastEnders here, and we've got the main storyline running through this one is that we've got JP's old pal, Mark Fowler. He's turned up back in the square not too long ago, and there's a bit of conflict going on here with his dad because old Arthur's not happy about Mark putting the stress on them by letting them know that he has HIV. So Arthur's fucking very out of order here, treating his son like absolute shite, just because he's making him gonna have to worry for the next 10 years or something. Like come on,
different
Arthur,
times, different models of fatherhood, Gareth. How about that as an explanation?
100%. And other things, we've got some smaller storylines running through. We've got Michelle Gale and Steve, where she's going back and taking a job with Ian Beale that Steve's not very happy about because he's not treated her great in the past. We've got Ricky Butcher, who's working on Frank to try and get access to Frank's mum's flat so that him and Samantha, Daniela Westbrook, can move out and move into that place. But Samantha's having none of it, and she's breaking in anyway and gonna squat in the flat. So we've got that storyline, and then you've just got that little sting in the tail right at the end where we've got Grant and Phil trying to sell a flat so that Sharon can take over the Rovers. 105 grand selling a flat in London in 1992, so they can. What did I say?
You said the Rovers, mate, there as well. That's heresy talk, that is.
I told you I was an ITV man. But it turns out it's that dastardly Wilmot Brown who raped Kathy back in the day is going to be the man buying that flat as well. So again, you've got a nice tight sort of, 2-3 headline stories running through this with a couple of little under stories running in the background here, but a lot of big familiar names from EastEnders days gone by. And probably if I turned EastEnders on this week, half of them would still be on the show these days.
100%, Gareth.
But
It is.
yeah, it's just mad. Just going back to these days when EastEnders was, the numbers that it was doing on TV at this time were just absolutely ridiculous. The amount of people tuning in, and definitely seen as like a high point of British TV. And again, I'll just throw it out there generally because of where we're at time-wise, lads. But any big thoughts coming out of this one?
Sorry, there was just a couple of very small things in it. One was obviously you've got Mark Fowler and the HIV/AIDS storyline as well. And I was thinking the knock-on effect of, I was like, Arthur wasn't very good there as well. And his death obviously precipitated Pauline Fowler's like decades-long heel turn, really, wasn't it? Because she never got over him and he just turned her into a complete bitch. And also there's a lot of effort, what appears to be going to a canal that's very close by. They could have walked to during the day. I don't know what they expected to find in said canal, but there they are. And on a completely different note, there was just searching basically for a plot synopsis, I managed to find a dissertation that was written that was based on this episode and feminist theory in the matriarchal soap EastEnders. So I don't know if that's relating to Pauline in particular, or possibly Pat Butcher in there as well, and a cheeky appearance from Dr. Legg. EastEnders going strong at this stage, post 30 Den.
What a
You're a big fan of Ricky, big fan of Ricky Butcher's hat, Liam.
Oh, brilliant! Talking about hats, there is, I think, about 5 or 6 hats in this episode that deserve mentioning. You've got Frank Butcher with his snapback trucker. That's a strong look that he's wearing there. You got Ricky with his Peaky Blinder. Pete's wearing like some sort of market store fedora sort of affair on the riverbank, and Arthur's got the flat cap on. Usual wear for him. And then Phil shows up with a Russian Ushanka on in the most random bit of like headwear I've seen in soap ever.
Is it Phil? Is it David Sullivan? Who can tell at this stage, really, but between the two? But yeah, absolutely incredible. Like you mentioned there, just incredible fucking headwear going on in this show. Like, I honestly to God, I couldn't believe it. The stuff that I'll see if I can get it up on here for video viewers, but where everyone seems to be able to fuck them out by the river for the day, don't they? As well, and we all see young Martin, don't we? Like he's proper young Martin as well before he becomes the teenage Martin. He goes out with Janine, and then there's come back, and the lesser seen Pete Beale as well, who but a lot of people just wouldn't have been around at this stage. Like Ian's dad, bless him, who's nothing like Ian as well.
I don't want to steal your thunder, Liam. Have you got any ages for this one? Because I have. Pauline Fowler. How old's Pauline there? We've just had her on screen.
I reckon she's 40.
43.
I'll have to go. I was going to say 43, but I'll say 44 just to be a cheeky bastard.
48? Like
48? So are you younger than Bet Harakari then? Fucking hell.
Well, also a year younger than Patty's in this episode.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Wow. And Frank Butcher.
Oh, Mike Reed. He died. You know what? He's not. So he died quite young, I think. He was like 60, so he died then.
I don't think he's as old as them two.
I reckon he's 42. I reckon he's younger than you guys.
No, I'll say 45. But fucking hell.
He's younger than you guys.
Say 45. Yeah.
Guy, we've all gone under. It's 51. Frank here.
Thank God.
I was surprised. I was looking at him though, and I was still thinking, like, really? Is that me in 5 years? Like, fuck. Like,
terrifying here.
Dark days. But I think that unless you've got anything to add, I think that brings us to the end of the first pillar, and we can move on from there. So I think a cracking slice of 1992 TV we've had there with the young and the old, the regulars with the soaps, a bit of game shows, a bit of life with the word as well. And so just hand you over to JP. Let's move on to the second one.
Yes, and we move on to the second pillar here. And where are we going to start? We're going to go with music. So at this point, I'll have put the music into the track on here, not that one on there, getting charts into the inbox. Bloody hellfire. So here we go, the official charts for the 26th of January to the 1st of February. We had at number 10, as he's going all over the place on here, we had Stay by Shakespeare's Sister. We had number 9, I Can't Dance by Genesis, down last week from 7. Welcome to the Cheap Seats, last week at 11, up to 8. And then a massive climber in here, I Wonder Why by Curtis Stigers, up to 7. Down from last week. I know Matty likes them. God Gave Rock and Roll to You Too by Kiss. Number 5, and this is where we're getting, I thought was the fucking highlight of this top 10. Down from last week's number 3, Everybody in the Place by The Prodigy. Last week at number 2, because it was in the big re-release a period of time as well, we had Bohemian Rhapsody and These Are the Days of Our Lives by Queen at number 4. Up from number 9, God knows why, Twilight Zone by 2 Unlimited up to 3. Number 2, last week's number 5, Give Me Just a Little Bit More Time by Kylie Minogue. And at number 1, lads, they were eternal champs. They were last week, they were at number 1, still there. Good Night Girl by Wet Wet Wet. So,
5
lads.
weeks at number 1, it says there. God,
5 weeks.
They had some good ones. Didn't they?
Hell.
Yeah, they had some.
They
runs.
really did. What did they did? They were an act for that point in time as well, weren't they? Yeah. Where do you want to start on here, lads? Which are the ones that really kind of stand out to you? I'm gonna go to Liam, as I always think of you as our resident muso. What stands out to you in this top 10, mate?
It's a diverse top 10, but we're going to start with the best song on the list for me, Stay by Shakespeare's Sister.
No, very good, Liam. Very good song, mate. Genuinely, very good. Scary video as well.
When I was 5 years old, this was goth music to me. This was.
Yeah.
I've learned better as I've got older, but I think it's a great song. To the point of, probably against my better judgment, I went and saw their reunion about 5 years ago because I was such a big fan. One of the first albums I remember getting this was Hormonally Yours. It was one of the first albums I had, but I think it's a great song. I think it's something that was in the charts that wasn't necessarily like anything else at the time as well. The video, I think, played a massive part. Seeing this on Top of the Pops was just like, it was like a movie almost. The film was, the music video was, but yeah, absolutely great song. Siobhan Fahey, who was originally in Bananarama, and then Marcella Detroit singing there. Yeah, great song. Anybody else? Any thoughts about Shakespeare's Sister?
Oh, this was just a massive song, and listeners can hear. I don't know if it is too loud. I'm tempted to turn it down a little bit on here as well. But it was an absolutely cracking song. This one, I remember this at the time. It was a big tune, and it's particularly because of the change in pace, like you mentioned on here as well, and the fact that it was like a music. It was almost. It feels to me like the music video was as big a deal, and it was like the complete change. Yeah, at this stage, like you didn't see. You know, as we'll see with some of the other videos, there's not as much time, care, and attention, you know, that should have gone in, particularly with like the advent of MTV. And I think this is the reason why this was such like a big success, is the video plus then having in the early advent of like cable TV and satellite TV in the UK, is you had like access then to an MTV, and then this song kind of stayed in there as well. It's not my favorite that's in there. I would go as far as that, but yeah, like this was just a massive song at this point in time.
Can you remember the? I'm assuming it hasn't been mentioned because I've just been on mute there. But Newman and Baddiel did a good parody of this this song as well back in the day, which was one that always stands out to me. But I'm with Liam, like just a belter of a tune. This one, like again, it was one of those where again they always just like stood out on screen at the time, like you know, cracking voices as well. Like when again, it was one of those where you were like looking at this top 10, a lot of familiar songs on there, but that was one that I was like, oh yes, can't wait to just have a reason to just listen to Stay.
And before we go off this, just to mention, we noticed that Wet at number 1 with Goodnight Girl it spent 4 weeks at number 1. This didn't get to number 1 until February next month, and stayed there for 8 weeks. Which you cannot imagine songs doing that now in the terms of entering the chart in a position and only growing. But I also think that shows the strength of what music television was at the time, what Top of the Pops was, what stuff like the Chart Show was. That you would see a video like this of a song you may have heard already, but entice you to go out. But on the subject of number 1s, while we're here, there was only 12 number 1s this year, which is wild. In the whole of the year, there were 12 number 1s. Obviously, Whitney Houston, I Will Only Love You, Always Love You, spent 10 weeks. This spent 8 weeks. Rhythm is a Dancer by Snap spent 6 weeks. They were the
Robin
biggest.
Adams?
No, well, I'll quickly go down the list of number 1s in 1992. Whitney Houston, I Will Always Love You. Charles and Eddie, Would I Lie to You?
Great song.
Boys to Men, End of the Road. Tasmin Archer,
Cooley High Harmony.
Satellite. Sleepy Satellite, Tasmin Archer, absolute tune. Shaman, Ebenezer Good. Snap, Rhythm is a Dancer. Jimmy Nail, Ain't No Doubt. Erasure, Aberesque. KWS, Please Don't Go. Right Said Fred, Deeply Dippy. Shakespeare Sister is Stay. And To Open the Year was our number 1 at the moment. Wet, Wet, Wet with Goodnight Girl.
Some good tunes there, like
good. I think something that jumps out to me there is just the amount of like dance tunes that are just starting to permeate the charts. Like here, obviously we've got in the top 10 here, obviously you've got your Two Unlimited, you've got Prodigy, you're talking about like Rhythm is a Dancer there. Like I remember even going back to when we were watching the Word on the TV bit, we got the ad break in there, and there was a CD, The Ultimate Rave was like, that was one of the first compilation CDs they ever bought. Was a fucking what a CD that is, like absolute all time of that. And I think it's just that quite interesting time from like a music standpoint where it does feel like it is a bit more of a melting pot than you maybe get these days with like so many like different genres. And I think with dance becoming a bit more, or rave becoming a bit more sort of like mainstream as well, like mixing it up there with guitar music, mixing it up there where you've got like your natural pop and things, but then you started to just get a little again with some of the other songs that you referenced there being number 1, just getting things that are maybe just coming from a bit more like soul or R&B background as well and things like that. It genuinely did feel, it's probably one of the reasons why, you know, you'll see me on Twitter always going on about watching the old Top of the Pops. Like that's what I love about going back to it, is just because it's so diverse at the time. And then you look at the top 10 here, they're all very different, but they're all just familiar. You just know every song that's in the top 10. And that's mad, because if you played me the top 10 from now, I wouldn't know fucking 9 of them probably, I guess.
Well, it was like we were saying about Shakespeare's Sister. Stuff got given the chance to breathe. You know, Shakespeare's Sister was number 10 and finally got to number 1 and was number 1 for a while. Whereas now you kind of imagine, you know, if a song doesn't hit the top 10 or hit the number 1 spot on first week of release, it's a failure. Next song, let's go up. You know what I mean? And it's that constant rotation, like conveyor belt music. Whereas a lot of songs, if you look at the charts at this time, you'll see may hang around the charts for a bit before they enter the top 10. You know, there's a song in here, God Gave Rock and Roll to You Too by Kiss, which probably came out before Bill and Ted came out, and then only got bigger and higher in the charts after the film come out, because people became familiar with it at that point. Whereas now the film comes out with the song, and if that doesn't perform, it's on to the next one.
That's it. Back in the day, you could have your tag run, and then you could have your IC run, and then you could get the world kind of thing. So that's it. You could climb the charts in that structured way. Just ain't all instantaneous these days, isn't it? But like this must be one for you, Matty. Kiss.
I mean, yeah. This I'm just literally like, yeah. Liam's nailed it there. Bill and Ted, it just grieves that. I loved that when I was a kid, that movie. And this song, obviously, synonymous with that film. And it was just, as soon as I heard it as even a 5-year-old, I remember my brother copying me onto a cassette for me Walkman I had as a kid. I always remember this song and Queen's Greatest Hits. He recorded for me. And as a 5-year-old, me loving Bohemian Rhapsody. And this song is particular, just wild times, like, but yeah, amazing. And it's also Libras there. Is it Eric Carr, one of the band members, his last video, because he got ill during this, and it's sad to see, really. And he's in the background, like, and it's a sad story.
Yeah,
but
they put him the drummer,
like, so yeah, it's Always have that. And a great song it is. It's a good anthem, this one. I like it.
When I was watching this video, I was thinking to myself, is this like if you started watching wrestling when Rey Mysterio was in No Limit Soldiers and didn't have his mask anymore? Is this the same thing? Because you're kind of not getting the full Kiss experience at this point, are you?
Yeah.
Because like, they put the face paint back on for Alive, is it, Matty?
Yeah, that's why they're geniuses, though, Liam. They always work out, and they're still going now. They added it in.
It's never the same, is it? It's like, you know, a hair versus hair match, getting your hair shaved for the first time, and then growing it back and doing the gimmick again. It's not the same, is it? You know what they look like now.
But we always fall for it. It's the, you know, it was the last gig when they had face paint and the makeup, and then it's the first gig without it, and then it's, oh, we can put it back on. There's always some sort of gimmick and some sort. That's why the genius is as businessmen for me.
I always remember reading a book about Kiss, and you know, Gene Simmons is an absolute merchandising like master. Yeah, and they did a competition for their fan club before they had their face paint taken off to the public, and the prize in the competition was a photo of Kiss without their face paint on. And the people who won it got this envelope with a picture of Kiss with no face paint on. And when they opened the envelope and it was exposed to oxygen, the photo slowly faded. So you saw what they looked like.
It's amazing.
You could never show anybody else.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
That is amazing, though.
That is fucking incredible. And I think, yeah, there's the load of just as a couple. I suppose there's a bigger, broader point about this top 10 about just the diversity in music, which is kind of like, I don't want to go. We're not going into politics for this as well, but it was at the point in time where there was like a real changing, particularly in the UK, the country, like post Maggie Thatcher, who'd been in charge for all of the 1980s. At this stage, you've got John Major, who I think he turns up, doesn't he, and bloody a part of what the hell do you call it? A Noel's house party, I want to say it is. Yeah. That you've got this kind of change, but also you've got like the popular culture changing. Like there's stuff when we talk about film in terms of like the changing generally of like cinema starts to, I think, really start to come into gear in the 90s, where like even the blockbuster is kind of changing and what it is. And films having a massive impact on the charts for this. And you mentioned about things like The Bodyguards, and this obviously being part of like Bill and Ted's as well, and it got songs back in. Like I think there was stuff even with Bohemian Rhapsody. Always felt like it was linked. The revival of that song felt like it was indelibly linked to Wayne's World. It was always like kind of with us at that stage, and yeah, and we had rave music cutting into the mix. It was exciting, heady times.
Can I just say as well, like this video, obviously with Eric Carr's illness and stuff, but it's like they are with the video, Liam. They're like, we're on the wind down now. It's been a long run. It's been like what, first album 74, so it's like what, 17 years, 18 years. Coldplay been around 23 years, still going strong. It's like it's just a different era of like how, once again, this why we do the show of time and how it's.
I don't think any band's been on the wind down as much as Kiss over the years. They've had more time to tell you funk, haven't they? Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. At this point, it's like that. Where's Coldplay? I'm not up to date with how they're like seen these days, but it's like I don't think they're winding down at all. They're still probably bringing new albums out and not even hinting at it. So it's just strange times.
I was pleased as well, though, just to see here, like the Wonder Stuff, Welcome to the Cheap Seats on the list here, because like, I think when people think Wonder Stuff, like Size of a Cow is obviously, I think the go-to is like the big hit, but this was always my preferred Wonder Stuff song here. Like I've always loved there's the line in there is like, I love the lyric of like, imagine the surprise when he opened his eyes and I run a lawnmower over his thighs. I love that. It's just like such a boss, just like just quirky little line, that one that always gets a laugh out of me. But I think very much that hangover sort of from your early 90s early 90s sort of like British music scene before you fading into your Britpops, you know, with your likes of your EMF and stuff like that. So very
Carter USM sort of stuff.
Yeah, 100%. So again, just sort of like showing that shift in a year where obviously, you know, things have started to sort of like move on in terms of like Seattle scene and things like that, and that's starting to come over here. You've still got the remnants of that early 90s British scene.
I was thinking Dizzy the song they did with Vic Reeves as well. That was always the one. That was the Wonder Stuff song for me because I love Vic Reeves' Big Night Out. This fucking haywire show, but yeah, eclectic shit, isn't it, lads?
I mean, can we get a bit of love for big Curtis Stigers, though, please? I mean, can we get a bit of I Wonder Why going on, Liam? I mean, come on, surely you've got to have a bit of love for this song.
Not really. It's a bit.
Liam, come on, mate.
It's a bit the CD your mum would buy sort of thing, isn't it? Curtis Stigers. No, I do remember this song. What was the other? Wonder Why, and what was the two big singles off this album?
What was his other one, Liam? Because I've told the story on this podcast many a time. I've seen him, didn't I, supporting Barry Manilow last year at the MEN, and he done like 6 or 7 songs, and like 3 of them were some of Sons of Anarchy, which I was loving, and then the rest was this. What was the other one?
All that matters to me, isn't it? All that matters to me.
Yes, that's it. Yeah.
I'd just like to point out for audio listeners that Gareth just gone. The mere mention of Curtis Stigers.
He was frozen. He was frozen.
I'd done something there as well.
Gareth just disappeared by Curtis Stigers. But
no, to be fair, this song, I like this.
Yeah, but to be fair, he had chart success this time of the year. With these 2 songs, and then he had his comeback with Sons of Anarchy, as he said, Matty. So know. You can't really fault that, regardless of what you think of the music. I mean, he's always... I think there was a lot of this sort of easy listening in the charts around this time. There was a lot of, like, new... not dissimilar to something... Not dissimilar to Wet, 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 really, is it? Wet, 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 Simply Red, sort of, a sort of a Blue Eye Soul sort of thing. But, yeah, I mean, is what it is. I mean, I know Gareth's a massive fan, so he could probably... do some thoughts on this.
I don't know. Maybe this top 10 just represents what Woolworths and the influence that had, because everybody loved fucking Woolworths, didn't they? So whether you were fucking coming back from a Prodigy fucking gig or you wanted to see Kylie Minogue, like Woolworths had it all, including Pick and Mix.
Well, can I ask as well, boys? For the number 9 here, our thoughts on this is near the end of Genesis's run, isn't it? I mean, are we Genesis guys in general? Do we prefer Gabriel or Collins? Let's have the debate now. Liam, what's going on with it?
Well, this is crap, isn't it? Let's be honest.
This is shocking.
I mean, even if you're a Genesis fan, I don't think you really like it. I don't think any Genesis fan says this is their favourite Genesis song.
No,
it's towards this is like... I don't know, it kind of feels like contractual obligations. You've got to release a Genesis record. But no, I remember the video. This was a big MTV video in the day. I remember this. I always seen this video, but no, not a massive Genesis fan, not a massive Phil Collins fan. More a Mike and the Mechanics man myself, but
Yeah. Of course.
Okay.
Not a big Genesis, not a big Genesis guy. This is a song that I've always disliked. I just think lyrically it's annoying as well. Like the lyrics are just shite. So like Liam said about this video being like present on like MTV, like chart show as well, like just been like just annoying, just an annoying video. This thing that you can see on screen now but just like Phil Collins at this stage, just looking like really, this is a pop star of the day, is it? Like
Shawn Michaels type of thing,
at 13, you're rejecting that big time, definitely.
Oh yeah. This is well. There's bits of Collins that, again, I'll always say sort of against my better judgment, probably, because he'd always hear the songs. He left his wife via fax, which seemed to be the thing that tainted everything about whether that's true or not. It's no Susudio. It's a shocking song. It's awful. And I can remember this dance because it felt like, Jesus, this is lazy. Like, this just felt like the laziest song, like, just in general for this. Like, you mentioned about, I don't know, maybe Buster had gone to his head. Like, I think at this point with Collins, that might have been where his head was at, is he was thinking, I should be a movie star. And then you look at Phil Collins and you're like, how? Like, really? But doesn't he do a song for The Lion King like a year later than this?
I think it's a familiar story with this, that he's had like groovy kind of love in the Air Tonight Studio, and like I think his initial fan base when he was in Genesis have kind of turned against him, and he's done this album in the fact of like, I'm a serious musician, you know, I'm in a band called Genesis, but if this is what he's trying to convince people with this song, which if you listen to early Genesis songs sounds nothing like Genesis. I mean, I think it goes to show that him singing is probably not the best version of Genesis, but it does seem like he's done this to kind of regain some sort of credibility with his fan base.
And it's like a spoof there of his video viewers can see of the Levi's ads.
Here, am I? I'm
you must be, mate.
Collins defender. I think he can't be ignored, and the mark he's left, like he's some crackers, JP. Even Genesis in the mid '80s. Don't want to sound all Patrick Bateman, American Psycho here, but Invisible Touch is a great record. I fucking love it so much. I really do like it. So you know, it is what it is. But he's very Marmite. You either love him or hate him. You don't. There's no in the middle, is he? Definitely not. So.
Yeah, he is. He feels very Marmite.
So I'm not going in too much. I'm outnumbered.
No, and I think really at that point as well, that sort of takes us to the ends pretty much of the music. Unless anyone's got any like strong thoughts on Wet, 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 other than their monsters. And was Marty Pello pissed all the time? Because I know he used to get very nervous.
Great song. Drink. It's a great song.
It is.
I thought it was the smack. I thought it was the smack for Matty.
Oh, was it? Oh, fucking hell! And fair play to him. Imagine hitting number ones while you're on smack. That's harder work than doing it if you're sober, for God's sake. This is give the man his shoes.
I do have a soft spot for Marty Pello in the fact of he's currently on tour, or recently on tour, doing a spoken word tour, which is titled Pello Talk, which I think is just brilliant.
That's a great title.
I mean, that's absolutely brilliant.
He wins.
He
wins. Well, that takes the end of music of the second pillar of the evening, and Liam, you're leading us into the next pillar of film.
Yeah, when I find my notes, we're going straight into it. So these are the films for the UK box office on the weekend of the 29th of January 1992, from 10 to 1. At 10, it's Dutch. 9, The People Under the Stairs. 8, Mississippi Masala. 7, The Addams Family. 6, Frankie and Johnny. 5, Little Man Tate. 4, Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. 3, Freddy's Dead, and it's the Final Nightmare. 2, Double Impact, and at number 1 for this weekend, JFK. So, listening to that list there and seeing the list on screen, starting from 10 to 1. Anybody seen the film Dutch? Very much Al Bundy's big leap into motion pictures. Anybody seen it? Ed O'Neill?
Never heard of it, to be honest with you.
I'd never heard of it. I'm amazed that there was a film at this time that I'd never heard of. Like, I blew my mind that there was a film that I'd heard of from this year. Like, insane.
I'd heard of it because it would have been, at this point in time, I'd have been mad. I was properly into basically all film. I was reading Empire all of the time. That's like,
Me too.
It was.
Sorry, I was amazed. I didn't know it.
Look, I can remember because it's John Hughes, isn't it, who made this? Am I right in thinking?
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah,
and it is, and it's the idea of like, okay, that early attempt of sitcom stars into big stars. They probably looked at like a Bruce Willis and Die Hard and thought, yeah, we can do it for Ed O'Neill, Married with Children. This makes complete sense. And I never saw it because it just looked a bit shit, really, in general for this. And I was never. I don't know. Married with Children was always a funny one. I suppose it wasn't because it was like necessarily bad, but I never thought it was as good or as amazing as what other people kind of like said it to be. Like had that kind of bigger reputation. And this kid is a dick. I'm going to make that point perfectly clear in this trailer as well. He's an absolute fucking arsehole. Yeah, similar stuff for this, but like no, I never saw it at this point in time. There's plenty in this list I've seen, but not that one.
By all accounts, it was a bit of a bomb. It was
seen
as John Hughes' worst film to that point. It's one of those that I think done better on video over time than it did in the cinema. I was surprised to see it at number 10 when I saw this list, but I don't think I've actually seen the film. I do recognise the poster for the film, but I haven't seen the film. So moving up the list. A Wes Craven film here, but probably not the one you expected looking at the list. The People Under the Stairs. Now, JP, throwing this to you. Big fan of this?
Yes, absolutely. This was the great thing about this era as well is you got stuff out from the video shop. And if it was my dad, he was an easy man to con because he didn't have a clue about the BBFC and film classification, thankfully, as well. And it was basically, well, I'll watch it. Was there tits in it? Would be his logic. I can't let him watch that. But pretty much everything else felt like absolutely fair game. So he would have got this out. I'm trying to think. It was either. I think I would have convinced him to get this, which is incredible. I never knew Ving Rhames was in it as well until I saw the trailer again. I was completely forgotten about that fact. But it was built off the couple from Twin Peaks, whose names escape me at the moment.
Big Ed and Nadine.
Yeah.
And Nadine, who had the eye patch as well and thought she was a teenager as well for a bit, didn't she? And which, trust me, you have to watch Twin Peaks in order for that to work as well. But Big Ed running around in a gimp suit was something that was, like a big fucking deal. And it's interesting because we got Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare in this list, and it's not directed by Wes Craven at all, and he's making this. And it feels like a film that I should revisit, but just the overall, sort of very simple concept. I mean, I liked it at the time. Like, I haven't seen it for a very, very, very long time since there. So I am incredibly curious to see, how it would do on a rewatch. But yeah, I've very fond memories of this film as well. And I would have watched it primarily because it was Big Ed from Twin Peaks is in this.
I did read that.
McGill.
I did read that Jordan Peele has run the rights to do a remake of this in 2020. So there may be a new one of this. Matty, big horror guy. Have you seen this?
Yeah.
People Under the Stairs?
You know what? I haven't. That's one that's on my list, boys. I've not seen it at all. As JP alluded to there, I'm more familiar with Freddy's Dead, Freddy Free there. So yeah, I'll have to check that one out though, boys.
But I would say I do think you would like it as much as it's a horror movie. I think it's very satirical in what it's going against. There's a lot of commentary about capitalism and like class war and the difference between the class system in this film. So that's quite a I think it's a really good film, and I think it's a film that doesn't get spoken about enough. It was when it appeared on this list, I thought to myself, that's something I need to rewatch. So moving up the list, Mississippi Masala. Anybody seen that? This is Denzel Washington before what I would say is the big Denzel run. Yeah. Anybody seen this or any thoughts about Denzel around this time? I think his big breakthrough probably did come the next year with Malcolm X, the film.
Yeah.
I think that's Denzel Washington's big breakthrough. And then from then on, he was very much a big, probably one of the biggest movie stars of that era with Denzel Washington.
I was going to say, and I say this as someone who very recently saw Equalizer 3, which is very much feels like Denzel going through the going through the hoops on here. I thought this was absolutely it was fascinating for me. So I remember the title of the film, but I never would have seen the film because genre-wise, it wouldn't have been the kind of thing I would have wanted to watch. And even back then, I just would have gone, no, it's a romantic film, so therefore I'm not watching it because I'm a teenager basically. But he'd won the Oscar for Glory. Ricochet was out in 91. Is that right? I don't know if I'm saying it. 91. That was.
Yeah, Ricochet was the film after this for him.
And it was like they tried different things with him, and that's the thing I never could quite understand with Denzel Washington. It was like they were trying to put him into big movie star roles, but it was when he played Malcolm X, when he played that big movie star role, all of a sudden it was like, right, there we go. Like he's like, it felt like he was like a proper star at that point. Even if he did do that weird film, was it? I want to say it's called not Velocity with Virtuosity or something along those lines with Russell Crowe, like in '93. So he wasn't like a big star at this point, but he was putting in the building blocks of just trying them out in different genres and seeing what worked. And then obviously it was like Malcolm X, and it was like a big proper like role in a big film, and Spike Lee being given a big budget as well at the same time was just something that didn't happen at that point in time. But yeah, I mean, will I watch Mississippi Masala? No, Probably not.
Tell you what I will do though is watch Ricochet again, because you just saying that, it just made me think, fuck, I haven't watched that film for 30 years. That's a film I'd like 100% written on the list there to just
spreadsheet out, Gareth.
watch this year, 100%. I love this. Just these little callbacks to other stuff where you're just like, fuck, I haven't even thought about that in so long. Never mind watched it.
So where do we see Denzel Washington at the moment? And do we see him on like the downside of his career? Do we see him as somebody with the right script? He's still A-list actor in Hollywood. I mean, he's been doing the Equalizer the last couple of years. Which how do you feel about that, Matty? The Equalizer, Denzel Washington. Do you think it works? Okay,
I do. I think honestly, Liam, it's one of them. If there was 10 of them, you wouldn't hear me complaining, because even though some of it is a bit like the last one was a bit sillyish in ways, Denzel's got the charm, the charisma, the skills, the acting, the actual skills to make you forget about all that in a way. So yeah, I'm all day for Denzel, even in this Equalizer role for sure. And I'm a big fan of the TV show, Liam, so it always gets a thumbs up from me.
Obviously, the one with Edward Woodward and not Queen Latifah. You mean, Matty?
Yes, the Edward Woodward one, the original.
Yeah, original and best. What do you think?
I think what he does have though is that like, if you're like in the mode now where I'm definitely not as close to like new releases and stuff like that as I would have been in 1992 or like 20 years ago, even, kind of thing. If I'm just like scanning for something to watch and I see his name, I'm always gonna like look and like go, is this good, kind of thing? Is it worth a watch, kind of thing? I think he's definitely one of those actors that, you know, like with the right director, with the right script, that, you know, he's somebody who still fucking knock it out of the park. I'm always going to give him the time of day, where I think how many other actors there are out there where you'd just be like skipping through and you just see the name and you just wouldn't give him any credence at all. You wouldn't be asked. But he's always one of those where you think, if he has done something that's good, I want to watch him. I want to watch him in something good, whereas there's a lot of actors that, you just skip and wouldn't do. I think he'll always carry that credibility only for the good stuff.
That name's got weight for sure.
Yeah, very very much an A star for me. Okay, so moving up the list, number 7, we get to the Addams Family. Now, I vaguely remember really wanting to see this at this time. The Addams Family, quite a cast in this as well. Interesting story about the Addams Family. 5 million over budget it was, to a point that Orion Films offloaded it to Paramount, fearing that they couldn't withstand another flop. They went through a period at that time of a lot of films flopping of theirs, that they didn't think they could have a big budget film like this flop on them. Just for example, some of the films that did flop for them were Great Balls of Fire, which was the Jerry Lee Lewis autobiography film with Dennis Quaid and Winona Ryder. She-Devil with Meryl Streep and Roseanne. A film called Speed Zone with John Candy, which I can't remember. And UHF with Weird Al Yankovic, which I remember seeing on VHS, but according to what I've read about this, it was a much bigger hit on VHS than it was in the cinema. So Orion, fearing that the Addams Family, if it was a flop, may have ruined them, offloaded it to Paramount, and then it made 7 times its production cost back for Paramount, as popular as it was. So the Addams Family film, Gareth, I'll come to you. Did you see this at the time? Did you want to see it? Did you think it wasn't really for you?
No, I remember at the time it felt like quite a big deal. I feel like when it came out, and like even then, like in your teens, it was still something that wanted to see, went to pictures to watch it. It's something that I've like. What I'll always think about this one is that it's just like stood the test of time. Like my Sadie, my daughter, she won't watch much old stuff, but she's watched the Addams Family to death. It's always one of those things that she'll go back to and watch. And, you know, I think that's kind of like a good testament to it, is that when you are watching it now, it does feel like so well produced, acted, the look and feel of it and things like that. It does feel a bit like timeless, I think. And then, you know, I always strip this one back to the cast and like, what a fucking like cast, like how
nailed
good,
the
like
cast,
Angelica Houston and Raul Julia. Fucking perfect. Like they literally, they could not have been cast any better and you couldn't have put anybody better in either of those roles. Absolutely knock it out of the park. Christopher Lloyd's fucking fantastic in it as well. At the time, Christina Ricci like coming through as that young child actor sort of thing.
Yeah.
She was just perfect for like Wednesday at this time as well, just with that kind of slight edge and darkness, sarcasm, and things like that like came with it. It was just absolutely class, and I think it's one of those where it sort of could transcend that thing of being like, yep, kids probably 8, 9, 10 would have wanted to watch it. I was happy to watch it at that time, knowing what it was and accepting it what it was, but appreciating that it was good. But like right through to adults being able to watch it and just be like, yeah, that's enjoyable. Like for an adult to watch too. Really, I think it had that kind of like multifaceted value.
Sorry, JP, go ahead.
I was going to say, it's going to sound bad. I never thought he was that funny. That was my only issue with it. I thought it was like I was even turning into a film snob then. I think it was all that bloody Empire magazine and the little quotes they put on the spine of it. That was the thing that was turning me around. So I always felt like the look of it was like kind of very good, because obviously there was a thing where I was getting into the Coen brothers and reading the film magazines. It was very much being aware this was being directed by the Coen brothers cinematographer and Barry Sonnenfeld. And if you've ever seen like Raising Arizona, as like that's probably like the best example of like the kind of like wackiness of the work. So, but it's funny now. I say this as like a kind of a dad, and then seeing the effect that Wednesday had, and also then putting Christina Ricci in Wednesday, and how Wednesday kind of work. I think the only thing that this film doesn't do that isn't faithful to the original comic strip is the fact that Gomez Adams is quite rotund, which they end up obviously you don't have that with Raul Julia. The last thing I saw him in was Street Fighter as well when he was on his death. Yeah,
like he's like, to me, he's that like enigma. I know he died, unfortunately, but could he have been like so good? You know what I mean? If unfortunately he wouldn't have died, I think he's just got that aura about him that like I'm like drawn to him every time I see him. Like it was incredible.
And going back to what I was saying about Patrick Moore, having him and Angelica Houston in this film did add an element of legitimacy of being like proper actor. But apparently the role of Morticia was initially they wanted Cher to play the role.
Yeah,
and
I can see that.
Yeah.
I mean, they're better off not doing that in many ways. And Christopher Lloyd as well, like just to sort of throw him in there. It's like that kind of like, because it wasn't necessarily being carried by him. And you've got to think about it. The look of it, of how it is looked and filmed, is not entirely dissimilar to how Tim Burton ends up doing Wednesday. It feels like it's like it could have been done by Sonnenfeld. Like you wouldn't be that surprised. And even though it was like, I suppose in many ways that's what it is. It's like a Tim Burton film, but without Tim Burton. Like if you were told that Tim Burton directed The Addams Family, you could completely go along with this as well. And it made, like you mentioned before, Liam, it made him a bucket load of cash. It was a big hit, and I think the reason you can get the parents into it as well with a few of those darker jokes.
Yeah, and just before
sequel is shite though.
Addams Family Values,
yeah.
Just before we move off this, I'll just have to make a token mention for the great soundtrack to this with the Addams Groove by MC Hammer. What a great song that is. Okay, moving up the list. 5 and 6 we can probably do together. In 6 we had Frankie and Johnny, Al Pacino and Michelle Pfeiffer in their first film together since
Scarface.
Yes.
Scarface.
I like this film a lot. I do, as a rom. Seeing Al like in this role and in like a rom-com there, I love it. I think it's a good story. Some cracking, hilarious scenes as well in it. Like, just like, I don't know how can I explain this one, JP. Have you seen it, JP?
I think I've probably watched this because it would have been on in the house. I can see a situation where my mum would have got this out on video, and it would have been on there as well. And have been, oh, I like that Michelle Pfeiffer, that type of like kind of logic. So, I mean, it doesn't look complex. I know this is based on a stage play, isn't it? That's the thing that it's on here as well. And Al's already, he's gone well, like, you know, everything is over.
Ralph Macchio's looking bad these days.
It's a funny one, isn't it, with this? Like, I mean, I think this is still where you've got a very, like, a star-laden system. and it's very much we're putting big stars together in films, and we're having these kind of like reunited. You know, that was still very much a thing in Hollywood, where movie stars would cost so much to put in the films that quite often you can only have one. You couldn't really have two of them, and then you have this one here. I'm sure it's possible. Fine. Is it set in New York? Is it?
It's because I always think as well, if there's my pronunciation might be off for the second name, but Hector Elizondo, who's a great support in this, and he's great in Pretty Woman as the support as well, isn't he? So I love him as well. But Pacino for me, no matter what he does, I'm always there for a big Al, JP. No matter, I know that's cliche to say, but always Al over De Niro for me, and I might die on that hill alone, but always Pacino over De Niro for me any day.
I'm a Bobby man.
That's what I am.
Not tax problem, Bobby. That Bobby. I don't want to know. I'm not interested in that. I know he has a lifestyle he has to fucking pay for, but yeah. But then we're only how far? 3 years away from Heat.
Yeah,
that's one that I'm not just going to give you an answer like that. That's one that I probably want to think about, because I don't think I've had this debate in my mind.
We'll have a special show about it, Gareth, because it's what it is. People go to De Niro for the variety of the roles, but I think Pacino, like, his absolute best work can. Whatever De Niro's, I know De Niro's unbelievable. I'm putting them down here. They're both unbelievable, but Al just takes it all day, Gareth. Honestly, have a good think about that one.
Just to talk about the other star of the film, Michelle Pfeiffer. Low key, quite a big star for quite a long time, isn't she? In film, Michelle Pfeiffer. I don't think gets her due. I mean, you look over the films that she's done. Good Catwoman, she's in Scarface, she's in this, What Lies Beneath, I think is a good film of hers that she was in as well. There's a few for Dangerous Minds, I think.
Gonna say that.
Very good in that as well. You don't see her name pop up when you think of like the big actresses of the 90s, 2000s, but I think if you look at her body of work, she's quite a formidable force in terms of the films that she did put out. But moving on to Little Man Tate, which is Jodie Foster. I've seen this. Has everybody else seen this?
There's a lot I haven't seen this.
No.
I haven't seen this one, mate. No.
Well,
I remember this.
Do you?
Have
you seen this, Gareth?
No, I haven't seen this. This and Frankie and Johnny, I'd seen neither, though. They were both sort of like the epitome of films that I did not want to watch at the age of 13.
I have seen this, and I do think it's quite a good movie. It's about a child prodigy. And Jodie Foster plays a single mother who's bringing her up. It's a bit, me giving that 2 sentences there probably tells you exactly what this film is, but I think it is well done for what it is. Jodie Foster, another cracking actress at the time as well, that could carry films by herself without a male lead beside her, like one of the big names of the era.
There's a point I think that you've kind of hit on with both of them too as well, where it's interesting because it feels like they've taken very deliberate career breaks. And Jodie Foster's is quite famous, but I think that not being so omnipresent for a long time is always a good thing. So I know, like with Jodie Foster, for example, for understandable reasons, between Taxi Driver and The Accused, she went to college, and she was at Harvard and Yale, wasn't she? And even now, and I might be dating it, I've started watching the latest True Detective, and the part of the reason I'm watching this, and it's the point I always kind of bring up, is she's in it, and 100%. She doesn't make TV. So if she's going to make TV, this is going to be a big thing. So, and she always had that kind of gravitas, and I was talking about, like, in terms of The Accused, and it's a hard watch for obvious reasons, but she is absolutely brilliant in it. And then to go on from that basically onto Silence of the Lambs, and then to quite wisely reject doing the sequel stuff. It's like, actually, you've really put yourself then into the kind of big, and then already having Taxi Driver there as well. And it was that idea of, there's some misfires along the way, but it's very much quantity. It's very much quality over quantity with her. And Michelle Pfeiffer seems to have done that, but later on in the career, having that kind of big run into the 90s, and then effectively going, do you know what, I'm going to pick and choose the stuff I do. And I would say with Michelle Pfeiffer, there'll be some big role where she'll end up winning an Oscar, or a big TV role, which will be that kind of later years defining it. It feels like she's at that kind of point. Yeah.
So was Silence of the Lambs didn't come out to? It came out this year, didn't? No, was it the year before?
91.
Yeah, before 91.
Yeah, it was the year before. Yeah, and then I'm trying to think what she may have done afterwards. Maverick with Mel Gibson.
Yeah,
which, probably not. Probably
two
not
big
one of
stars. Like
she loved working with Mel. Like, we fucking hell. There's blind spots and there's blind spots, but she loved working with Mel Gibson.
But yeah, going to number 4, Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, the sequel to Excellent Adventure. Gareth, looking forward to this at the time when it come out. Was this the kind of film that would have got you into the cinema over something like Frankie and Johnny, Little Man Cade?
Yeah, 100%. As much as at that age, I was very much like the JP saying there, like reading every episode of Empire and starting to get a bit snobby sort of thing. You still had that carryover where you just something like this that were just big films and just like big fun films from the time. And obviously like Excellent Adventure was one of those that was just like a video shop kind of like regular thing that you were going to get. So the fact that you were going to get like a second Bill and Ted like coming through, fantastic. And then like for me, like with this one, like as much as you've got the Bill and Ted side, it's just all about death.
Yeah. One of the best performances ever, Gareth. Ever.
Just like hilarious so in this film. It just like the best part of it, like where they're like, best 3 out of 5, best 4 out of 7, and things like that. When they're playing, when they're playing to kind of like the right to win and things like that. Just some great comedy in this one, and just like from everything right through to the supporting characters through to the music and things like that. Just one of those that I just think about it and it just puts a smile on my face immediately. It just feels like good times.
A sequel that's best of the original for me as well. Like, definitely, I'll have this all day over the first one. And as Gareth said there, William Sadler deserves, honestly, I'll go to this as one of the all-time. I've just one bit where he's pushing his station round, where he split in two, and the guy's just looking and he just goes, "See you real soon." That's definitely ad-libbed. 100%, that's definitely ad-libbed. It's just so fun. I've rewound it about 10 times, Gareth, every time. I love this film so much.
There is stuff about this where like it feels like it's criminally underrated, like generally as a film, because I'm not saying it's not as good as Back to the Future, but there's a heavy Back to the Future kind of like, if you just think in the general plotting, there is so much going on in both of those films, and they managed to tie a really nice bow at the end of all of it. So it actually works and doesn't feel completely stupid, even if Death winning the Indianapolis 500 by running in those last like kind of, which is some reason the thing that stuck with me for the rest of my life. It's incredible stuff, and like I have to confess, I didn't watch the third one because I just thought it's not going to be as good. Like, and so I thought I'd stay away.
And it's,
I
don't want to dish it.
It's okay, you know what I mean. It's okay, but we all know what Keanu Reeves went on to do after this film. But Alex Winter, is it? He played Bill. Here's a question for all three of you. What did we see him more as? Did we see him more as a Bill S. Preston Esquire, as in this film, or did we see him more as Marco from Lost Boys?
Gareth will say Lost Boys. I'm saying Bill S. Preston Esquire, though.
JP
100%.
to break the deadlock.
How about I ruin the deadlock by saying I see him more as a documentary director?
Here we go.
He's got on there for a load. But I won't lie, I don't think. I always end up thinking more of Keanu Reeves when I think of Bill and Ted, as well as the thing that kind of stuck with him, and it is Marco from the Lost Boys, particularly hanging off underneath a train track in an incredibly dangerous move that should have given the other. Jason Patrick should have known they're vampires at that point in time, but there you go. He had a good career for himself, and the director, he's not the best. He's not Alex Gibney, for God's sakes, but he's a perfectly decent documentary director. Then the last thing I saw was, did he do The Internet's Own Boy or something along the lines? I want to say that he did something around that kind of realm, possibly one of those crypto bros, and did a did a couple of like interesting documentaries, a lot of the time about tech. So he's doing all right. That's the long and short of Alex Winter's career. Doing fine. Keanu's doing all right as well, in case anyone else was curious.
Still getting the subway and Keanu. He's all right.
He is.
But yeah, so okay, the next one on the list, the third one, Freddy's Dead: The Final Nightmare. Now, when I saw there was a Wes Craven film on this list, I didn't necessarily think it was going to be The People Under the Stairs. But this is the directorial debut of Rachel Talalay, who was the producer on the Freddy film before this. But a lot of people disappointed by this film. Think it's one of the weaker ones in the lore of Freddy. Matty, I know you're a big Freddy Nightmare on Elm Street guy. Your thoughts on this film?
Yeah, before, because I was reading my notes, I called this Freddy 3, it's Freddy 6, so let's get that right. Everyone's pulling me up. But I'll go to Gareth for the more breakdown, because I think you're more of a Freddy guy, actual Freddy guy than me, Gareth. I love this thing, but I'm more of a Jason guy. But this, you're right, Liam, this is one, probably if not the worst one for me, Gareth. Like, you get Freddy full on. He's basically a baby face in this, because the character's that good. It's basically, he's a full-on face. Everything he does is full-on humor. Is this the one where he puts the girl has to put the 3D glasses on, isn't it, to get like into his brain? There's a lot of that. He's playing the video game as well, isn't he, while he's killing them? There's a lot of that going on in this one, and it is. But it's still Freddy at the end of the day, go Gareth, isn't it?
And this was like at the time though. This was an event. This was like it's like Freddy's Dead, the final nightmare sort of thing. It was where you'd had these like horror films coming out like rapid, that franchise horror film character like coming out, and then this as well, with it being like you saying there about the 3D glasses, like some of this been shot in 3D and then giving you the cues in the film that when she put the glasses on, that was when you had to put the glasses on, like when you were watching the VHS, like at the time. So it was just like a unique experience really from that point of view, getting your 3D glasses off the video shop to be able to watch it. And that, and there's the great scene where throws the glove and the glove's coming out of the screen kind of thing, which was like 3D with your glasses. That was always like be just boring to my mind. That one has just been like cool as fuck for the time. But this was one I was such a Freddy guy. Like I had the graphic novel of this that was just like written just literally scene for scene kind of thing with this movie. I don't think there's the death count in this film's quite low. There's not as many like cool deaths in this one, but there's the great one with the lad who's deaf and he gives him the hearing aid kind of thing, and then you've got Freddy doing the comedy spots by like suddenly he's like hearing's not just normal, it's like hypersensitive. So he's like drops like one pin kind of thing in a comedy way, and then the guy like catches it, and then like so he thinks he's got the better of Freddy, and then Freddy drops like a fucking 1,000 pins or sort of thing. So they're all like dropping on the metal and stuff. So there's the little comedy bits there. He pulls out the chalkboard and does like scratches down the chalkboard. So and his head blows up kind of thing just because of the that with it. It's got the old thing of like, I tell you what, it's got Spencer as well, the lad who is just a big stoner who just plays video games all the time, and he ends up like getting imported into the game, and then like he gets killed like within the video game. But you've got the thing, obviously, the whole plot point of that. This is that she's Freddy's daughter, isn't she? That's and like so she ends up being like able to kill him as he's dragged out of a dream. They like crack onto that and she blows him up with the dynamite at the end. Like just it felt like it was a final thing, and then it just ends on like the Freddy's dead, and then I can always remember this. She says Freddy's dead, the music for Freddy's Dead hits. Then you just get, it's like the end of a fucking wrestling pay-per-view in the 80s or something like that. You just get the little like montage of all like Freddy's best bits from the six film. It's got that song going on in the background, and then you're just seeing all the high spots from the previous 6 films. Like it's like a brilliant. So while as a standalone, it doesn't sort of fit against some of the better ones, certainly not like 1 or 3 or anything like that. Just as a an event and experience, and it did feel like closure at this point. It did feel like, no, Freddie is dead. That is the end of the franchise. Like at the time, obviously we know what we know now, and things like that. But
never die, Gareth.
It did have that feeling of finality at that point. But it'll always have just a special place in my heart. This one, just because of the nature of it, like the gimmicks around it, and the fact that it did feel like a big deal.
Also, sorry,
go.
Yaphet Kotto in this as well.
Yeah.
Legitimacy in this, like he is like
Big Al from Homicide: Life on the Street.
I was about to say Lieutenant Giardello there. Big time, mate. Big time.
Parker from Alien, mate.
Yeah.
And obviously the villain in Live and Let Die as well. He gets blown up like a balloon at the end and explodes everywhere.
Do you remember this being an event at the cinema? I vaguely remember being intrigued at the 3D aspect of this as a child. I remember seeing posters and adverts about this being 3D in the cinema. Do you remember that, JP?
I do remember the 3D aspect for it as well. And I think I'm trying to think of what film burnt me off on the 3D. That before then, it would have been Jaws 3D. It would have seen it and gone, this 3D shit. I don't like it. And then just would have completely given up the ghost then at that stage. And I wouldn't have been able to get into the cinema to see it here. That happened, I want to say, with Reservoir Dogs later on that year, where you could just pay an extra £1. I went to see that in Bram Stoker's Dracula on the same fucking day, which is just obscene. But that's Turnpike Lane Odeon for you. God bless it. Now a bus garage. But here, like with Freddie, like I always think, like this comes back to the points we said about like kind of like Jim Bowen and Bullseye in many ways. It has to be Robert Englund who's doing this role, because obviously we saw it in the remake, which was awful in a number of ways, plotting wise, because the whole point was the righteous indignation that Freddie had, that he was tortured for no good reason. And instead, like he's been, he like no, actually he is paedophile. And it's like, oh right, you're kind of ruining it for that. But yeah, sorry, go on. Are you back to the Jim Bowen comparison?
I've got in my head now Jim Bowen as Freddy Krueger and Robert Englund setting Bullseye in my head. Jim Bowen in the stripy jumper. I can't get the image from my mind.
Well, think of this image. Think of Bully in his shirt, but with a hand with fucking knives on it as well. If they'd done a Halloween special of Bullseye, and instead of the Bully, you give him out a special Freddy Bully, like on that, don't you? Bully Kruger, I don't know. And you just got that. He's got his Bully's face, but he's got scars on it as well. He's got the fucking knives on the hands.
Stay out of the black and into the red. Nothing in this game for a knife in the head.
Exactly. Oh, glorious stuff.
Alice Cooper is his dad, though, Matty. And that's
yeah. You see, you've made me want to watch it again now, Gareth, after you so gleefully have described it. But for me, it is the worst one, as you say, and even you said. But overall, with Big Yaphet in there, Alice Cooper, there's a lot going on.
Oh, mate, is there?
I seem to have a memory. Doesn't Iggy Pop do the theme for this as well? I think Iggy Pop.
It's not the rap one, is it, Gareth? It's not Freddie's rap. That's like 4 or 5. That's great.
It's though, like Freddie's dead, like kind of thing. Yeah. Like I can't. I'm not going to sing it. Make it determine if it's Iggy Pop on it.
Was he back on the stag? Was he? Not putting much of an effort.
Very distinct theme song.
So that was Freddie's Dead, the final nightmare. So getting up to the last two of the box office of the weekend of the 29th of January. Number 2, Jean-Claude Van Damme comes to Hollywood. And he's going to become a big star. Now, JP, Double Impact. This was Jean-Claude's attempt to move away from martial arts film and to be taken as a serious actor. Did he succeed?
Simple word, no. Because first of all, if you're casting Bolo Young in it, I think you're pretty much making a martial arts film at that point in time. I always think of the first non-martial arts film for him, the first proper one. That was, for me, that was Sudden Death. Because he wasn't doing much martial arts movie. It was just Die Hard in an ice hockey rink. Here as well for this. I mean, this was, again, one of the films. Jerry didn't need to be convinced to be getting this out from the video shop. Jerry wanted to watch it because Van Damme was in it. And I was so much into Van Damme. I was there from No Retreat, No Surrender. I was there And I want to say, like, the criminally underrated No Retreat, No Surrender 2, which he isn't in, but they replace him with Cynthia Rothrock in there as well. Well, they don't replace, they replace him with a bigger Russian bloke, but she's like the big martial arts star on it. On this as well, like, it's in fairness to them, from what I can remember and from what I saw on the trailer, they do manage to make them look slightly distinctive enough, don't they, between them? I mean, they're effectively the same bloke, don't get me wrong. One of them,
one is Bullseye.
Basically, that's it. But he's doing the same old Jean-Claude Van Damme shit. There's a bit I remember where, like, a freight container falls on the man, and I thought, I always thought, how much would he be squashed into while he was being squashed into that? It'd be absolutely ridiculous. But yeah, really, like, it's not classic Van Damme, and I don't know necessarily for it to be number 2 would have showed that, like, there was the pull of the man. He wasn't Sly, he wasn't Arnie, he was always in that kind of that upper mid card tier at this stage. We'd have, as we saw with The Word, Universal Soldier was coming out in '92 as well, which I think was like probably a much sort of bigger, more mainstream like film for him to do. There was Nowhere to Run out the year before.
That's 93. That's
93. Okay.
Yeah.
He was going to be all over the place there as well. And the one where it's the one where they're being hunted. Is it Hard Target? No, that's 93, isn't it? That's John Woo in 93.
Yeah. So, Matty, this is kind of like, I can liken it to your favourite indie wrestler getting too big for the scene and having to go to the Fed. And this is what he's coming with. Where do you rank this in your Van Damme films?
I'm going to shock the world here and everyone listening probably. This is probably the only Van Damme film that I've never seen right through.
Wow.
Genuinely, JP. And I'm not even shitting you. I've seen it. Well, without going into my new job, there's a guy who works in the home I'm going to be starting in, and he always puts this on. Every time he picks a film to put on, he always puts this on. So I've seen it like in passing, and I want to, but because it's never in his box sets. I've got a few Jean-Claude box sets. It's not in that. It was always one I couldn't get hold of, genuinely, as I was collecting. So I'm going to have to watch it this week now, aren't I? And fill the gap. So genuinely, boys, never seen it. It's wild.
I am shocked.
Yeah,
Gareth?
To me, it almost feels like I've like got his filmography up in front of me here, and I'm almost feeling like it felt like a bit at the end of the run to me. This of like
that's
this. I remember watching this and it been like, I remember watching it and not been dead into it at the time. Whereas I'd been dead into like the things that had come before, like the late 80s stuff, like big fan of AWOL, big fan of obviously like Kickboxer, Bloodsport, No Retreat, No Surrender, Cyborg, there was that sort of like the late 80s run. I think Universal Soldier, I think I sort of checked out a bit on Van Damme after Universal Soldier, I think, because I'm looking to the list here, the other stuff that come after that, like in the immediate next couple of years, there were things that I was a bit like, no, I'm not that fussed about. So like, I remember that I think this is one that, again, I've probably only seen it once or twice in my life, but I remember watching it and being a bit disappointed with it, like back in the day.
As I alluded to, it's kind of like the start of his big Hollywood run. This is
definitely Liam, 100%.
He's given up on the work rate of the earlier films, and he's trying to get by on his charisma and name brand only, isn't it? I mean, he goes from this into Universal Soldier, Nowhere to Run, Hard Target, Time Cop, Street Fighter. Yeah. None of the big Van Damme fans will say any of those are his classic movies. I mean, I like Southern Death, I do like Nowhere to Run, but as you say, this is the top of, this is the ECW going to TNN run.
Yeah, it
is. Yeah. It's all downhill from here.
It's hit and miss, in it. It's still got the vibe, but it's not consistent. But like you guys have all said, AWOL, Death Warrants is another one we haven't mentioned. I love that film. Them indie ones.
Is that the one about the organ transplant thing that's going on in a prison? That's right.
Amazing. It's with the Sandman as the heel at the end. Oh, it's incredible. It's fucking incredible.
I stuck with Van Damme for a long, long time. I was there, I think, up until it might have been Knockoff, which I think was the one there was bombs in jeans, counterfeit jeans thing.
Rob Schneider.
And I went,
Rob Schneider.
I was like, what am I watching here at that stage? And I sort of gave up at that point. And then he was obviously going slightly off the rails around this point of time as well. But yeah, I mean, I haven't those it was funny because none of those films were like kind of massive at the box office. Not even Time Cop was big enough, but again, it was all like it was a video market. But it's hard to explain that when you went to the video store, like just the amount, it was the sheer amount of Van Damme films you were faced with, and you were like, well, like the old fella's going to want to watch this, so like here we go. Getting him to. I'm sure I watched Universal Soldier like an obscene amount of times, really, for it as well. Great stuff.
So that moves us on to our number one. For my money, Oliver Stone's greatest movie. It's JFK with Kevin Costner. Now, at this time, I would argue Kevin Costner's the biggest name in Hollywood. Always had a lot of time for Kevin Costner. So this, Oliver Stone, JFK. JP, you seem to be in agreement with me there regarding this being his best film. Agreed, yes?
Yes, I would. This sounds really weird because I'm a film graduate and I wrote my dissertation on Oliver Stone, which could be like, it was basically style over substance, to which the answer is very much yes, generally in the main. I went to the cinema to see this. I'd say, yeah, it was weird. He was a 15, and obviously I wasn't 15, but we managed to get in at Enfield for this as well. So it would have been slightly lost on me not having an encyclopedic knowledge of like sort of American conspiracy theories. But the thing about this film is it's an experience. I think it just blows you away with just the sheer, like, it's because there's so much style and there's so much information being kind of thrown at you. And I would always point out, like, the Joe Pesci, for example, as video viewers might well have seen, like appearing on it with like this terrible wig. But and there's Donald Sutherland delivering this kind of like 20-minute monologue, which by like Kevin Costner's just listening to him as he's just sort of explaining all the various conspiracy theories going on at this point in time. It's kind of a mad film because at the central core is a man who you go, all right, what actually is it? Why is Tommy Lee Jones in court here? You've never really explained the fundamental reason why like he is involved in it. It's like you've mentioned this massive conspiracy and all these other things about it, but you look at the cast for this. The cast is fucking ridiculous from beginning to end, and there's people in it who aren't in it for a long amount of time, like even a Kevin Bacon and the like as well. Like shout
out to the big Wayne Knight Newman.
I was going to say Newman.
Yeah, John Candy in it as like as a slightly corrupt lawyer. In there as well, Michael Rooker, who people would remember obviously from like sort of like likes of a Walking Dead. Sissy Spacek as his wife, but it was like an event film. It really was, and it's just like his tour de force because it's just every aspect of what he's wanting to do in film. He's just throwing it on screen, and you're hit with so much information, and before you know it, you're like an hour and a half in, and it's a wild ride of a film. Gary Oldman's in it. Lee Harvey Oswald as well. Like, and there's even towards the end, the back and to the left sequence as he's like going through like the final assassination bits as well. Even if you look beneath it, though, if you look beneath the surface, there's like, it's so fucking sketchy, the guy's argument, like ultimately that he has. Like, don't get me wrong, I probably was assassinated, but I don't think he's told in this particular way. But it's such a ride and a roller coaster.
Yeah,
I feel like I grew up watching this film the first time I saw this film. I think it opened my eyes to the world a little bit, kind of thing. Like I think it was incredibly powerful. It just made you think about like question everything almost a little bit. I think like some of the detail of it. It's one of those that I think it was an early film that you were watching that wasn't an old film, that was that was like a modern film at the time, that it kind of just like immersed you and felt that it was like it was something that was important, and it was something that like had like a power and weight behind it and things like that. It wasn't just a film kind of thing. It was almost like a serious life event kind of thing. I can only imagine what it was like for people who had been alive, 30 years earlier, kind of to then go back and see elements of this unraveled in the way that it was. And like you say, the cast of this film is if you think from having Oliver Stone directing, but just the people who are on screen just dotted throughout this. Again, you talk about piecing together big stars or affording certain people and things like that. Like, again, the depth here, the roster depth on this one, fucking unbelievable.
Yeah.
Oh, and the bump that Kennedy takes as well, cracking bump in there, and it looks bad.
Always work the left, always work the back.
Always work the left as well. Regal would have been happy with that, wouldn't he?
Just to mention this film, I always have this film synonymous with the Malcolm X film by Spike Lee as two big biographical films that were also hits at the cinema at this time, and they never appealed to me at this point in my life, obviously. But as I got older and I watched both of them, I think both of them standalone are absolutely great films, and to coin a phrase, pillars of like 90s cinema in terms of what they are in terms of biography. Matty, any thoughts on JFK the film or Oliver Stone in general?
Once again, I've said this probably since the start of this podcast again. It's on my list. You're saying Kevin Costner there, Liam. I've got it on Blu-ray unopened, so I'm gonna have to watch it now after especially JP's glowing review. Like, because I never knew JP. I didn't know how the film approached, whether it was like from literally about Kennedy or what's going. You know what I mean? So I never knew, but now you put me mind at what it's about. I'm gonna watch it. And Dances with Wolves was another one. And Costner's 3-hour epics that I've never seen. That's always on my list. So there's like them two have got
this one, mate.
Yeah,
or maybe The Postman if you want the real IWC Kevin Costner 3-hour pick.
Okay.
No, don't watch that. Don't watch The fucking Postman.
JFK, I've literally got it there on physical. Genuinely.
Definitely. Because you'll completely go along with it.
But yeah, just to close this off, I mean, there was a conversation in the GRAPPL Discord recently about the best free-run films of a actor. Now, not necessarily the best 3 films in a row, but in terms of money made. 1990, we had Dances with Wolves with Kevin Costner, which went into Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, which went into JFK, and then the 4th one into The Bodyguard. So in terms of money and revenue, them 4 films could have done. There's no wonder why he doesn't really make many movies these days. His legacy secured. And that's my love letter to Kevin Costner to finish off the film pillar.
Can I also say, sorry, Oliver Stone, The Doors. I fucking love that film. Fucking love it.
That was the film they wouldn't let us to go and see. We were allowed to go to the cinema and see Silence of the Lambs, but not The Doors for obvious reasons.
See, just not to get too much into it controversially, but I think Val Kilmer's really good in it, but I don't necessarily think it's a good film.
Okay.
We may have to do that in a upcoming episode of Time. Yes. So that completes the film pillar, and now we're moving in to sport. Matty, it's over to you.
I'll try and do me nice, smooth, cool Des lining with this, boys, but that mightn't come through that. But yeah, we're moving on to sport in January 1992, and this is the before we move on to the football section, and we'll save that for the end. We've got a few sports that I'm not too familiar with, not a fan of, we'll say, and you guys can break each one down for me. We'll start with on the 2nd of January 1992. Shane Warne makes his Test debut for Australia versus India in the 3rd Test at Sydney Cricket Ground. Liam, fill me in.
Shane Warne, probably the greatest spinner of my lifetime, if not the greatest spinner. It's weird with Shane Warne. I'm sure people on this panel here who don't really follow cricket are aware of Shane Warne.
Of course, yeah.
Hence what his appeal was beyond the sport of cricket. This was his first Test match. He came in on short notice and got absolutely hit all over the place. His numbers on the day were 105 runs for 1 wicket, which was the wicket of Ravi Shastri. He went on from this to become, as I said, probably easily the greatest spinner of my lifetime. His appeal is across the board with stuff. It was at a time when he came into cricket where quick bowling was dominant in the fact of the faster you could bowl, the better you were as a bowler. And the art of a spinner was slowly dying out. He came into the sport with his right arm leg breaks and completely changed the course of what cricket could have become, with 4 to 5 seamers making up a lot of teams outside of the subcontinent. He went on from this. He won a World Cup. He took 708 wickets, which is the most wickets ever taken by a Test bowler up until that point. 145 Test appearances. Yeah, just an all-round like iconic star of the game of cricket. JP, any thoughts?
Oh, it was always difficult because he was always, I mean, he's sort of synonymous with just fucking skittling us out for silly figures whenever he was there as well. I mean, there's so much, like, with the benefit of hindsight, you kind of love about him, and his career is a wild tale. Even the post-cricket career, which is, the cricket career is incredible, and there's a whole drugs ban that goes into the mix as well. And then there's him there's always that kind of the larrikin that he has about him as being part of, like, kind of Australian society, to the point where, like, he ends up with his own chat show and he hosts it like he's fucking Michael Parkinson, and it's not that bad. Like, you think to yourself, this should be bloody awful, really. The benefit. Paul Scholes hosting a fucking chat show, is not going to be good TV, but it works. But, like, Shane Warne is absolutely cracking at it as well. And he, he's a professional poker player. I've always thought as a commentator, he was just the natural fit for it. And, it's a really, like, for me, I love, like, people would always talk about Murali as like the other competition. I'm not getting into the stuff that was always people would always say about, like, Murali's action and the rest of it. The thing was, Murali played against a lot of shit. Warne didn't. Warne didn't do tours of Bangladesh and Zimbabwe at that point in time. He just played against heavy fucking hitters, and he did it home and away as well. And he was playing in great Australian side. Probably he was never Test captain, was he? And he's saying he never got a Test century as well, which is kind of shocking, because there's the amount of times that he would just have a lash with the bat and he was cracking. And yeah, he was a proper, like, and it was one of the things you always say, like, about England fans, are like, we love to hate him. It's like, they just never hated you, mate. They love the banter, sorry to use that phrase, with him as much as anything else. But he's like, people fucking loved him. Like, he went out with Liz Hurley, for God's sakes.
I was about to say, JP, 3 things on Shane Warne. Like, obviously, Liam, I know he is, and I do love just putting his stuff on YouTube, because it is incredible to me how, like, is it the ball to Gatton that gets him out? Like, come on, I mean, like, that is, like, no matter what sport you like, you don't like, that is just a piece of footage that needs to just be shown to everyone, because that is so good. Liz Hurley, number 2, as you say, JP, fair play to the man, right? And number 3, he's everything Roger Black wanted to be after watching that episode of The Fucking Wig. The glamour, everything. If only he could have had that life that he had, and God bless him. I fucking love Shane Warne.
I mean,
but what he is
Hogan-esque.
He is a genuine star in that. Yeah. You can ask somebody who knows nothing about cricket who's Shane Warne, and more people are going to know who he is than not, kind of thing, just because of the presence and impact that he had in lots of different ways. And the thing is, as well, is for somebody who at various points in their, I'd never describe myself as a cricket fan, but there's been times in my life where I've got absolutely, like, immersed in certain World Cups or certain, like, Test matches that have been going on at different times and stuff. And he's one of the guys that you just, like, you want to see. He's like an entertainer. He's like someone who's jumps off the screen. What he's doing stands out as being different and better and things. I can't articulate why, because I don't understand cricket to that degree. But you just know he's somebody. Oh, it's fucking Shane Warne, this is going to be good, kind of thing as well. You always sort of have that cachet about him.
Yeah, I always think he's one of the great, like, flawed geniuses of sport, in the fact of, like, he wasn't a media managed sports star. Sometimes his mouth got him into trouble. Sometimes he got himself into trouble. Sometimes he would show up to games out of shape, but still perform. Yeah. And in this age of, like, media managed sports stars who've got all these sponsorships that they worry about losing, he was one of those that said what he wanted to and went about things his own way. And Matty, just, you would like him on a broader scale of, he was a proper big match performer. That
I can imagine that.
When the Ashes came along, he was always at his best, and I think that's why England have such a love affair with him. That while at the time a lot of English fans may not have liked him, there was always that appreciation for what he was able to do and how good he was. But
No, good stuff. Good stuff. And moving on now to another sport. Gareth, you're going to lead the way on this one, my friend. It's on the 3rd of January, so a day later after Warren makes his debut. Wigan pay Widnes a world record rugby league transfer fee, Gareth, of $440,000 for Great British international winger Martin O'Fire. Now, can you explain just how good Martin O'Fire was? Was he worth that money they paid for him?
Was he worth that money? Yeah, it was worth it. And I think the thing that's like wild that stands out at the time there is like that being a world record transfer fee of 440,000. Like people don't even move for money like anymore and things. Rugby league nobody could afford to buy a player for 444,000 like these days. So like that I think it's still the second highest transfer fee ever paid for a rugby league player. So you go like back to that time period where it's, you know, obscene. But I mean, you know,
that's incredible. Sorry, on the video here, Gareth, that he's literally ran across the pitch. That is incredible.
And when you talk about like Shane Warne being like a household name and things, I think one of the things that like Martin O'Fire has is he was like, you know, a genuine household name. Whereas I think like if you went onto the streets now and you said to the general public, like name some rugby league players, they'd probably mention Martin O'Fire still, they'd mention Ellery Hanley, they'd mention these guys from like the 80s and 90s where the sport had a higher profile. You know, they had these people who were generally sort of like recognized as being like big stars at the time. And like O'Fire was one of those who, he sort of like helped at this time period where you had that, where Sky took more of an interest and put a lot more money into rugby league as well, where O'Fire was that star caliber, but he was also a far cry away from the, like, I don't know, flat cap and whip it northern sport kind of thing of rugby league. This was a guy who was, you know, he was a Londoner. He was like young. He was like, you know, he was pretty cool kind of thing. He had a bit of dosh because of like his status in the game and things like that as well. So you'd always see him with like the good cars and he dressed well and his shades and all that. Like on the pitch, he was just like fucking like lightning. You know, he was. And he was somebody who, I mean, this was a great game, this Wigan and Widnes for the league title here, both of them like head to head, and like they've got Fire just smoking. Mark Preston there, number 5 for Wigan, was a flying machine, and the Fire just absolutely just smoked in the air, like from the corner. And this is probably his most famous try ever. I was at Wembley this day where he did the length at Wembley. Like just as soon as he broke that line, you were just like, he's going all the way. And Alan Tate, the Leeds fullback here, he was like a sprinter in the off season as well. So he was a fucking flying machine as well. And the Fire just like dropped a gear and just smoked him on the outside for just like one of the great moments. And there's a statue of him outside Wembley there with the head in hands, because it's such like a great moment. But as a rugby league player, as a lad growing up at this time, and just like he just felt like a superstar. And he was a guy who he went over and he played in Australia because they played at a different time as us. So he was going up against the Aussies as well, and just able to just score similar tries in their competitions. At an international level, he was able to do it as well. Like just genuine, you know, elite player. And he had a lot of flaws in his game. People would say like he couldn't tackle and things like that, but it didn't matter. He was fucking scoring 50 tries a season because it was just like bang, bang, bang through the hands, give it to a Fire. If there's a gap, fucking gone. And he's like, you know, he was absolute money. And plus he had that swagger about him kind of thing, like because he knew how fast he was. He'd break the line and he'd have a guy chasing him to tackle him, and a Fire would be fucking running, holding the ball back at him, like it's just like, you know, like you can't get near me kind of thing, and showing the ball and just skipping because he knew they couldn't get near him and things. So he had that cockiness and that brashness that when you're up against, when you see teams against Wigan, you wanted to see him get his fucking head knocked off and things like that as well. You know, you wanted to see him get a proper clobber as well. So just good times with this, and then just in line with that arrogance, went on strike as well here to get this move to Wigan as well. Refused to play for Widnes. So having been somebody who'd gone there, led Widnes to a couple of league titles with the amount of tries he scored, probably one of Widnes's greatest ever wingers. But I mean, your Steph's from Widnes, isn't she, Matty? I ask people on the street, Martin O'Fire, there might be a lot of people who still hold a lot of resentment there, refusing to play and then fucking off to the rivals for although they got the dough.
They're only young, but they love the rugby league, and obviously, I always ask you this: they're in the league below Super League, aren't they? So I've always said, if the minute they get back, because literally Steph's mum, literally Gareth, lives, I can't even 20 yards from the Widnes Stadium, like literally lives by it. And I've said the minute they get promoted, we'll go to a Super League game. But I should just go to a Division 1 game, really, shouldn't I? To be honest. For the atmosphere.
They played for Workington in a friendly 2 weeks ago. We could have went, mate.
Oh, Gareth, we'll make it. We'll go soon. We'll sort it out.
But you probably remember Martin of Fire. I mean, had you heard of him, Matty? So,
you know, my dad, God bless him, like he always had, especially around this period, like he loved rugby league, especially when the Super League come out on Sky. He always had a little bet on like how the teams would, how many points the teams would win by and stuff like that. And remember Martin of Fire? Is it Sean? There's another one. I remember Sean Edwards. Yeah, he's another rugby player. So a Fire and the two that stick out to me, who were vivid. So yeah, no Martin of Fire, yeah.
And obviously you will, JP.
Oh yeah. I mean, I was, you know me, I've got like it's a sport that I've got a lot of fucking time for. What the next thing I say you'll probably absolutely hate, which is I was always, he never played Union, did he? He never got like, he did play Union.
Yeah, he went back.
Okay.
When rugby union went like professional and they could pay, like he went and he played for, I think where did he go? He went to Bedford or somewhere like that. And I mean, because he came from rugby union, that was another thing. He came from rugby union, so he was a guy who he had no presence in rugby union at all. He played for like the England Sevens team and stuff, but then suddenly he was like boom, and he was seen as like, you know, a world star within about a year of going to rugby league.
Because it was always the thing with him is he was one of those players who kind of stood out. And it's funny. I mean, I say this as like I watch league and union. I mean, the league I mainly watch is the NRL. It's the fact that he went over there in a time where it would have like really fucking good players as well, and he did it over there. Like it wasn't like, you know, and I don't know if he was necessarily a trailblazer for other British players going over. But like he fucking stood out. They knew well. Chariots. Yeah.
It was the Aussies loved him. And then when he was at Widnes as well, Matty, Widnes world champions of the world. Widnes
of the world, Widnes. That just shows you how good he was. Then
he got to. Does it look like a well-beaten stadium, Matty? That one, the Widnes one.
You know what? A nice little. I say I've got to go. It's literally on a doorstep. I've got to go to that. Like Steph grew up obviously in that household, seeing it on like packed match days or bigger games than it is now. So yeah, I've got to do that. But no, good stuff, Gareth, on a fire. And I'm going to call it audible through some technical difficulties. We will save the NFL to the end. And of course, it's Super Bowl season as well. So we'll end on the NFL. We will talk about some discussion points from football, soccer, whatever you want to call it. Are you listening to it here? And I'll go through the discussion points as a whole, and then we'll discuss what ones stick out. So this is also the last season, remember, before the Premier League launches. So this is the old First Division 1991-1992 season. And on the 4th of January, JP, sorry to this has been included, we've got Arsenal, who are the defending league champions at the time, are knocked out by Wrexham in the FA Cup, who are they finished bottom of the 4th division the previous year, JP, 2-1. Mickey Thomas and all, the free kick, and Oldby's like 37 or something in the JP. You know, we'll talk about it in a sec. The 11th of January, Gary Ablett makes the move across Stanley Park to join Everton from Liverpool for £750,000. On the 30th of January, Derby County pay a club record fee of £1.2 million for striker Marco Gabbiadini, just 4 months after he joined Crystal Palace. So he must have impressed there at the Eagles. And on the 31st of January, 1992, Manchester United are top of the First Division as January ends with a 2-point lead over Leeds United with a game in hand. And we all know how that ends up. So, JP, sorry again, but I'm going to throw it to you about
Fucking hell.
Can you describe? I'm sure it's
And I've got to
vivid
put on the fucking video as well to
in
boot,
your memory.
isn't it?
Where was you watching it? What was your
Right.
reaction? Give us the whole breakdown.
So the game was being played at 3:00, and we weren't in an era of live games going on, and we were 1-0 up like during the game. And I got the SNES in '92, but I went around to my mate Noel Murphy's house. He's a clever bloke, Noel. Went round there to play Super Mario Brothers. And I knew we were 1-0 up, and I just kind of ignored it. So I went, we're away at, we're fucking Wrexham, for God's sakes. And we won the title in 91, and we were pretty dominant in 91. I know there may be some talk, well, Liverpool lost Dalglish, but we lost once that year. And we were fucking incredible. And I can remember leaving Noel Murphy's, walking back home, and this is such a fucking old memory of they had like a TV shop and all the TVs in the front window, and they were all tuned to like final score. And I was like, oh, did they get a draw? Because there were fans on the pitch, carrying Mickey Thomas off. And then I saw 2-1, and I went, oh God. Because what I also realised is the abuse I'd receive in school. Like that, and did receive.
What a free kick, JP,
that weekend.
What a free kick that was.
I'll never appreciate that free kick as a result because it was against us. So you can say it was great. It's like the Paul Gascoigne one. It's like, yeah, was it really? You'll never get that from me. That is something you'll never get from me at that point in time. But
look at it, though, Gareth. What a strike!
Fucking heart.
It's a belt of a goal. It's an absolute screamer.
And there's the Dark Prince himself, George Graham, as well at this stage, who had. At this point, in 92, he started went, do you know what we need to get rid of? We need to get rid of some of these creative midfielders. What we want is we want centre halves, we want Ian Wright, and that's the way we're going to play for the next 4 years. Dull, attritional football. Yeah, that image is fucking sick. I was just gutted when I saw that stuff as well. It's just
romance of the cup,
heartbreaking.
It's FA Cup weekend this weekend.
Not against us, mate. Not against us, it isn't. But we're out of the cup this weekend, so I can give a shit about that either at this stage. And a very young Alan Smith there.
Yeah, I always feel sly on that Steve Watkin who got the winner, because everyone always talks about Mickey Thomas because of the free kick and because it was Mickey Thomas and him being that big personality and a known player and things like that. But that lad Steve Watkin got the fucking winner. No one ever talks about him.
That's like Ronnie Radford, though, Gareth. Ronnie Radford gets the
Mickey Thomas
in that game. I don't know if he goes on to get the winner for Hereford against Newcastle.
Someone else scores because Radford.
Someone else scored, yeah, because it's a great strike. It's similar to that, I think. So it's sorry, though, JP. We do apologise again.
It's all right. It's all right. I really should get over it at this point, shouldn't I? Really.
Some things you can't, though, JP. Some things you never.
Fucking hurt. That did.
JP, I was amused though the other night when you were previewing this and you didn't realise that Gary Ablett was slang term for tablet in Liverpool. So have you paused even more on that? It's like, have you got any Garys? It wasn't even Gary Ablett. Have you got any Garys? And that was a tablet. It's amazing.
Because I always love that because there's the Scran van on the dock road, and it's called Gary's, and I always just think
was you aware of this, Liam, as well?
In there, are they?
Yeah, absolutely. You got any Garys? It's always been commonplace in my life. I think it took me a bit longer to work out his reference to Gary Ablett, but yeah, the phrase "got any Garys" is not that I've ever used that phrase. Man, just clear.
In Australia, I don't even know if he wouldn't even be he'd be the third most recognisable Gary Ablett, because there was a Gary Ablett Junior and a Gary Ablett Senior in Aussie Rules. I remember being on there as well, but he must have been all right. I mean, he did that move from Everton to Liverpool,
before my time. I don't know how good he was.
Other way, Liverpool to Everton.
Oh, was it Liverpool? Oh, he owes Liverpool to Everton. Yeah, of course. But at that point in time, $750,000, reasonably sort of big money at that stage. I mean, we'd had the what was it? The Everton to Liverpool transfer of Peter Beardsley. How many years before then was that? Was that
That's 91, that isn't it? That's 91.
It's in around here. Yeah. It's close.
It seems a lot more commonplace. When we signed Sol Campbell, there wasn't nice stuff. They were burning fucking effigies of him at White Hart Lane.
Xavier, the recent ones for us, isn't it? They're the recent two, Gareth.
Yeah, even Steve McMahon, he was both. Like one of Everton's greatest players, Dave Ixon, he was both and stuff. So there's been like over the years, I think there's definitely been more flick between the two. Like,
but he, as I say, because of the obviously era, I remember Ablett more for Everton, obviously, than I do at Liverpool. But
just a guy. He was just a player. Like it was like I don't think he was. I don't think he was a great loss to Liverpool at the time. And like personally,
fair play.
Looking back,
has anyone got any thoughts on Marco Gabbiadini signing for Derby for 1.2 mil? Have you put this obviously in here because 4 months after joining Crystal Palace? I mean, that's some like short stint, isn't it? So like he must have impressed. I'll have to get how many goals he scored up here because
it was his. I would guess this is where he probably wanted to move a bit closer north because he left Sunderland for Palace and he was a fucking goal machine at Sunderland. He must have had like he was just one of those guys who like in the league below he just scored every week. You know, he was he got that move to Palace. I'm guessing he probably just didn't settle in London, or there must have been something about money rather than it been like the Palace thing got him a move to Derby. I'm guessing he wanted to move north, but he was just sort of one of those guys who, in an era when you had, you know, God, you had so many fucking world-class strikers in the first division at that time. He was one of those guys who would be like, you know, not even in your top 10, but the volume of goals that he probably got is just like ridiculous, really, you know. So quality finisher.
In another era, he plays a load of times for England, but then it's like it's not the same as Steve Bull at Wolves, but the sheer volume of goals couldn't be ignored. And I'm looking through his career stats here. It's like 1 in every 2 at Sunderland, and then even it's 5 in 15 at Palace, which isn't the worst record as well. And then it's 50 and 188 for Derby, and then he's going out on loan, then sort of like 96, 97. But there's always been strikers like this who come in who feel very like Marcus Stewart at Ipswich would be like kind of an example of that.
It, like Chef Red early on in that. Yeah,
they have that one big Paul Warhurst when they done from a centre half into a centre forward, and he scored a load of goals for them, which made no fucking sense. So Blackburn bought him because that's what Blackburn did at that point in time, didn't they?
Bob Taylor, West Bromwich Albion, yeah.
Oh,
yes,
Bob Taylor. Clive Mendonca at Charlton. I know. Proper strikers at that stage.
I love that.
But just looking at that movie made to Derby, I mean, Derby had a few quid then, because when he did go to Derby County, he was up front with Paul Kitson, who they paid £1 million for as well. Yeah. But he was initially signed by Crystal Palace as a replacement for Ian Wright. That's what their idea was, because Ian Wright had moved to Arsenal in 91.
Moved to us. Yeah.
So and he was seen as a replacement.
It would have been dark fucking days if we hadn't had him, mate.
Yeah, that's it. No, good stuff there, boys. And we'll end on the football with Man United, top of the first division as we end the month, and got that 2-point lead over Leeds and a game in hand. Unlike Fergie to be losing something, but this is pre, his first league title win and stuff like that. He would have been livid that he lost this, wouldn't he, Gareth?
Do you remember how he lost it as well?
No, I don't really. I think Cantar's at Leeds and stuff, isn't it?
Last day of the season, lost 2-0 at Anfield. Yeah. Leeds won, so Leeds won the league. Leeds won the league, and we cost them the league at Anfield.
Love that.
When Leeds had Cantona.
Yeah,
who then they sold the next season, didn't they, for 1.2 million? I want to say same price as Marco Gabbiadini.
Just shows you.
But Cantona wasn't playing though, was he? He weren't getting in over that Chapman Rod Wallace league title win in front too. Like keeping Cantona on the bench. Chapman and Wallace.
I think it turned out to be a poison chalice, if you want to believe the rumours about Lee Chapman. And I'm trying to think of his wife's name, who was in Men Behaving Badly.
Leslie Ash.
Yeah. There was there was all manner of rumours about that. And then, Howard Wilkinson selling them. And it's also the thing that kind of sums up the era. You know, Leeds win this. Next year it's Premier League. There's a lot more money. Man United are all of a sudden, they are the club and they end up fucking dominating as well. And Leeds don't do shit. Like for a fucking long time. I think I want to say the main rivals in the season afterwards are like Villa and Sheffield Wednesday. Norwich are up there as well, and in there as well. And that's the thing, you know, as close as Fergie was at various times to going, when they when they finally started winning titles, they did it exactly the right time, which is the beginning of the Premier League era. And what I felt at that point in time, and I'm hoping you lads would agree, was just this brainwashing effect that appeared to be going on, telling us that Man United have always been the biggest and best club in England. It's like, no, pretty much throughout my life that I can remember, they've been pretty fucking bang average up to that point. They weren't winning shit all the time. Like,
26 years without a league, wasn't it?
Yeah, they were banging on about winning the FA Cup in '85, like the Norman Whiteside final. And it did. It was revisionist history, is how I felt about it. I'm not going to get into the kind of art, but it really was.
Who was part owner of Man United during this period? Sky. So
never gets fucking mentioned.
No,
don't. I was livid about it. The conspiracy theorist in me was strong, but that would have been JFK as well.
Oliver Stone should have made a film about it.
Oliver Stone callback. But Leeds, I mean, I sometimes think you think back to this Leeds team though, of like the midfield of Strachan on the right, Batty and McAllister in the middle, and then Gary Speed on the left. Like, what a fucking midfield that was.
What a professional, but in the best way, though, Gareth. Like, getting the job done, that midfield there, that is perfect for across the board. There,
absolutely, bit of everything. And, through me, a little shout out to
McAllister peaked with you, lads.
Mel Sterland and Tony DiRigo, quality pair of fullbacks as well.
John Lukic in goal, was it? Or was he still at Arsenal then? Was it John Lukic in goal? But and Leeds obviously won the last old First Division title before the Premier League. But Liam, I know it's FA Cup weekend this weekend, dating it again, but we're going to end on, are we officially in Super Bowl season? I'm not an NFL guy. Are we actually in there yet? So we're going to
2 games away from the Super Bowl.
2 games away, and I know it's in Vegas because I've got lucky enough to be going to Vegas in March, and hopefully it's died down by the time I get there, because I know there's a lot going on in the city. Of course it will be, but we on the 26th of January 1992, it's Super Bowl 26 at the Metrodome in Minneapolis, and it's Washington Redskins who defeat the Buffalo Bills 37-24. And you've noted down that the MVP is Mark Rypien, is that correct? Rypien. Of the Washington Redskins, the quarterback. So Liam, can you break this down for us?
Yeah, Super Bowl 26. This was the second consecutive year that the Buffalo Bills had gone to the Super Bowl. It was also the second consecutive year that they lost in the Super Bowl. If that sounds bad, they also went to the Super Bowl 2 years after that as well, and lost in those as well. So they went to the Super Bowl 4 years in a row and lost them all.
Jimmy White of NFL then? Very
much a team that thrived.
Brilliant.
Very much a team that thrived in the regular season but could never get over it to win the Super Bowl in that period of time. I know the question on everyone's lips is, what was the halftime show? For this Super Bowl, the halftime show was Gloria Stefan. So it wasn't the event that
Rhythm was going to get you. That seems like an absolute certainty to be on the playlist.
Miami Sound Machine with her or not?
Yeah, I was going to say the Miami Sound Machine in Minneapolis makes sense. Viewing figures for this, Matt. Do you want to have a guess, millions wise? People choose to spend Thursdays discussing 1 million here, 825 viewers here.
Exactly, mate.
What do you think the viewing figures in America were for this Super Bowl?
I mean, I could be just so. I don't know, 50. I know Friends' finale was like 50 million, so I'll just say 50 million.
79 million watched this game in America.
Jesus Christ.
So just to put it into perspective, just a wider conversation about the NFL at this point. This is the point where I would believe the NFL was on Channel 4, Gary Imlach presenting on a Sunday evening sort of thing. And I missed your early conversation about the state of the Football League at that point, but the Football League was moving towards the Premier League the season afterwards at that point. Yeah. And I think it was very much a necessary move. a lot of the popularity of the NFL in the late 80s, early 90s has been put down to the fact of the football product, the football league product was drab, the rise of hooliganism, the fact you couldn't take kids to football games because of the trouble, kind of gave NFL, which was this flashy product with, as people would say, space-aged armor, playing rugby. You know, to a viewer that would turn over and watch it, they would see something that was like a very different sport, and a very different spectator sport. Not too dissimilar to people who saw WWF for the first time after spending years watching World of Sport. I think when the Premier League formed, the fanfare in the NFL over here did kind of go down slightly until Sky really got behind NFL as one of their big products. But at this point of the Super Bowl period in the NFL, it was a big event. Channel 4 made a big deal out of it, and it was probably one of the most popular sports in this country at this period. But it was probably just leaving that point of popularity where the Premier League was coming into stuff. I mean, something as trivial as gladiators may have took people from the NFL. Wrestling was becoming popular and stuff. But yeah, yeah.
Can I ask you one thing? This is hopefully a bookended, because the first thing we talked about today was Gamesmaster. Were the Madden games out at this point? Were they a big part of anything like that? Like that has a tie-in, or am I way off?
No, the big game you would have had, the biggest NFL game you would have had would have been Bo Jackson football, I think, at this point, which would have been on this. I don't think Madden starts till about 94. I think there may have been an iteration of like electronic arts football or something, or some deviation. But no, but yeah, like you say, you know, a lot of the things that rose the popularity of the NFL were the Madden games, were fantasy football, was the terrestrial television coverage of it. But I think this point in time in 1992, NFL was probably at its most popular. We were just in the midst of the World League of Football, which was a worldwide league that was being used as a feeder system for the NFL. And there was a team in London, the London Monarchs, which were getting 60,000, which were getting 60,000 for a game at Wembley Stadium. Wow, that then became NFL Europe, which slowly died off as interest over here in the NFL died off up until the 2005, 2006 onwards. But yeah, I wanted to put this in because Super Bowl is such a big event, and also the fact that the Super Bowl and the NFL at this point was probably at its highest ebb in the UK at that period.
Well, can I just ask as well, are we all, I should know this, but I know Gareth and Liam are NFL guys. Who've we got as our teams? Like, who are we? Who we behind, Gareth?
What? Who's my NFL team?
Yeah.
The Minnesota Vikings. And this Super Bowl that we're talking here been played in the Hubert H. Humphrey, the Minnesota Stadium, as close as Minnesota's got to a fucking Super Bowl in my lifetime as well, by having a game played on there. Well, it was there recently on the new stadium. But yeah, my never seen the Vikings hit the Super Bowl, unfortunately, as yet.
Who's yours, Liam?
Raiders. I refuse to. Well, I don't refuse to call them the Las Vegas Raiders, but they're always the Los Angeles and Oakland Raiders for me.
Well, can I ask us, JP, have you got a team or?
I do, yeah. Which is just based on the fact my sister lives there. Is the Eagles? It's
you've explained.
Sports teams, yeah.
The next question. So yours is because your sister. What made you two guys choose who you got behind, Gareth?
God's honest truth.
Yeah.
From Robbinsdale, Minnesota, ravishing Rick Rude.
I love it. Fair play to you. That's how you get it. No, great stuff. Liam, what was yours?
And to end this conversation going on completely full circle, I got bought a NFL VHS in the mid-90s, and one of the few clips that was on this VHS was Bo Jackson running over Brian Bosworth when he played for Seattle. Famous Monday night game when Bo Jackson rushed for hundreds of yards and ran into the tunnel after like an 80-yard touchdown run. But Brian Bosworth at that point was seen as the future of NFL and got absolutely exposed in this game, and he was never the same player again. Hence why he moved on to making films, Matty. You can blame Bo Jackson. You can blame Bo Jackson and the Raiders for that.
He should have been the future of action films as well. So that's been his is obviously JP incredible, but
to what Liam was saying though about like the presence of it in the country, I felt like there was people like William Refrigerator Perry, who played for like the Chicago Bears. I feel like he was like a household name in Britain, and he's like some a Chicago Bears player. Like I felt like he was on TV and things over here. People knew who he was. John Elway, the Denver Broncos quarterback, and things. People just knew who these people were. And again, you're looking back to a time where it's largely up until the late 80s stuff. You're still 4-channel TV, really. The penetration of like satellite TV and stuff was so small and things that most people were consolidated down. And then when you had like the magazine highlights show on Channel 4 of like the NFL, it was up against bullshit on ITV and BBC Two and BBC One and things like that. So it was like people were tuning in to that way, in the same that like snooker players were household names and darts players were household names, because like your average bloke who's going to be like, oh, what am I going to watch on the telly? Something, a sport or something. Oh, I'll watch the sport, whatever that sport is, kind of thing. So I think American football like succeeded a bit from like that point of view. Like it's, but again, it's one of those that I just feel like it's just got that kind of like solidity, really. If you think, like literally going back 30, 40 years now, it's, you're looking at almost like you're knocking on getting close to it's going to be half a decade, really, that it's had a good footprint in this country, and it's not this novel alternative. I think it's seen as this like, oh, actually, people used to kind of like have a go at you a bit for like in the NFL, like, oh, that shit, oh, it stops all the time and blah, 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 they wear pads and all that. I think now people like recognize, oh no, this is actually like an extremely entertaining, accessible like sport that is like elite level athletes. I feel like it's definitely got that profile.
Well,
sorry, JP, go ahead.
I was going to say, it's probably not the time for me to go into that, like, why is the NFL now massively popular, or, well, why is it the television sport in the world, like, in terms of just figuring on pure viewing figures as well. I think there's things around this point in time that you've got to remember about when you've got TV expanding, you've got more American TV expanding over here, which is going to have references to the NFL, which then becomes the sort of thing that ends up sticking with us. And plus, also, it shouldn't be disregarded. I think there was just like, as part of that, the NBA was massive. Like, this is where I'm starting to get into the NBA, and NBA highlights are being, we'd had those on BBC as well before, and it was different, and it was like kind of exciting. We spoke about Bullseye, and you see Mike Gregory on that, and it's like, well, Mike Gregory's going to struggle to compete here against like the kind of like the NFL and the rest of it. And maybe William Perry was our Bob Sapp. He was big over here, and he just didn't see. Maybe outside of Chicago, not as big, but yeah, it's fucking strength to strength these days, mate.
I tell you though, I feel like I need a team now. And I have to leave it up to you guys what team I should. I only know like the famous ones are the 49ers and the Cowboys. Are they no good anymore, or like are they?
You got married in New York, mate. New York Giants.
I should go Giants. Russo as well. Shouldn't I? So
go the Jets. Go the Jets. It'll be more fun.
Okay. The a couple of teams there. Okay, fair enough.
You can support the New York team that doesn't play in New York, because none of them do.
Go the Jets for a lifetime of misery.
And what a wonderful point to end the third episode of Time that we've done. Fourth. Jesus Christ. Sorry, the brain is frazzled at the end of all of this. It's been absolutely brilliant, as always. And that's January 1992, well and truly covered there as well. I suppose the main things, just to say, if you want to see a completely unedited version of this, because at time of recording, we don't know what the copyright lottery is going to be this week of what is the inexplicable things that are going to end up being banned. If you want to see the full uncut version, if you go along to, and it'll be up there for free, up on the Patreon, patreon.com/grapple, but obviously be watching this on YouTube. So definitely like and subscribe. And you like more of our content, become a YouTube member or a paid Patreon. But brilliant stuff, guys. Anyone else got anything else to add before we wrap up?
Liam, thank you as always for getting this together and delivering like you always do. And it's another 3 months, guys, before we get back in the time machine. So let's come up with another good year next time around. I can't wait. Always love doing this, and yeah, thanks. Been a great time, boys.
Brilliant.
I've been looking forward to this since the moment Liam put that list together. When he put that in the chat, I was like, can't wait for this. There's just so many fucking highlights along the way here across the 4 pillars. So yeah, cheers, Liam, and I hope it was a good listen
Liam.
for everybody.
No, always a pleasure to work with 3 such professionals as yourselves.
Always. Professional is my middle name, mate. So brilliant. All we've got to say is
sorry, is that
bye.
what the P stands for?
It is, yeah.
John Professionalism Hoolihan. Bit of a mouthful.
Or prick, one of the two. On that happy note, we'll see you all again next time. Bye.